look at Curly right there. I mean, baby. Okay, oh, Gwyneth is
I
postponed.
think we have 113.
It is?
Yes.
First one.
Yeah.
Second one.
Oh, the second.
Not Gwyneth, Edmonds.
Edmonds.
Oh,
So 41.
our folks are here.
45.
Right.
Not Gwyneth, it's 45.
Okay, 45 was postponed. Missing one. I don't have 113, do you?
I haven't gotten that far. I've got two 112s. Although maybe there's, yeah, there's
Put those together.
Wow, let me see.
So, that can be on there.
yeah. Tear the little cover page off.
So what do we get?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Yes, sir. Which school are they here from? Okay, and the name of it was what again? Uh-huh. Yeah. Base Yaakov. Okay, great.
201.
We haven't heard.
Hmm?
Did he give you a 211 yet?
He said he was looking.
He's still looking.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sending it vibes.
Right. Still feeling that it needs to be.
Hi kids,
Yeesh.
don't be too quiet. Make sure taking notes, not the camera.
Welcome all of you joining us from Base Yaakov. Hope you enjoy the sort of ceremony that comes with this room. It looks very big, important, and imposing, but I assure you that none of us are that scary. Seven.
Look at them, they're all taking their pictures. How cute is that? I know.
Yeah. I just wanted to cycle through these and we'll address that.
They're all here testifying for his bill.
All right, so we're going to come to order, and I will, for the record, welcome the students in attendance today from Base Yaakov. Glad that you all could join us and peek in on what we do here. This is the June what is today's date? 6th convening, 2017 convening of the Board of Municipal and Zoning Appeals. And that's really sort of long way of saying that this is the body that people take appeals to when they either want to make improvements to some piece of property that they want, that maybe they need some kind of special permission for something that's associated with the property, whether the way that they're going to use it or or the size of it, either the height or the width. And so we function kind of like a court. There typically are 5 of us up here. Today there are 4. And we swear witnesses in, and we hear arguments from the parties concerning whatever matter is in front of the board in that particular case. And in the end, we render a decision. So as I said, in many ways, it's kind of like a court, though we don't get to wear pretty neat robes. And fortunately, we only do this as a side occupation, as we convene every other Tuesday here, Tuesday afternoon, and then the rest of the time we go on to our other jobs that we have. But I did want to acknowledge and recognize each of you, and thank you all for coming, and thank the councilman also for bringing you in today. You're welcome. Thank you, Councilman. So now we're going to move into the regular order of our day. We're going to start as we typically do, just by going over some ground rules. First, if you have a cell phone, a pager, anything that makes any kind of audible, electronically generated sound, anything that plays a ringtone, a chime, etc., we ask that at a minimum you please turn those to a vibrate only, if not off position. And the rules, well, the reason for those rules is pretty simple and straightforward. There are a number of microphones which are arrayed around us up here, and those microphones are all very sensitive, not only for the purpose of amplification, but also for the purpose of recording these proceedings. And cell phones, pagers, and the like going off in the gallery not just are generally disruptive to the conduct of these proceedings, but they also interrupt the recording of these proceedings as well. Additionally, if you need to have a conversation with someone, we ask that you please take that conversation out the double doors to your rear. And the reason for that rule is the same as for the other one. It's generally disruptive, and it interrupts the recording of these proceedings. Those of you who are sitting forward of the wall above you can see that there are 1, 2, 3 video cameras which are mounted on the wall back there behind you, and there are 1, 2 video cameras which are up here mounted behind us. These proceedings are being videotaped for broadcast, both streaming live on the website for the city's cable access network, as well as recorded for posterity for broadcast on the city's cable access channel, as well as stored for subsequent viewing on the city's YouTube channel. So cell phones, pagers, conversations, and the like also interrupt that videoing process as well. When we call the cases, we will be voting at the end of the day, and you're certainly more than welcome to hang around and enjoy a civics lesson if you so choose. But if you've got other things to do on what is an otherwise splendid early June afternoon, that's certainly understandable. The weather is gorgeous outside. I encourage you to enjoy it. But if you've got other things to do this afternoon, that's certainly understandable, and you can call into the zoning board office in the morning and find out how we've ruled on your case. If you take out pen and paper, I'll read off the number for the zoning board office a couple of times to give you some time to get this down. The number for the zoning board office is 410-396-4301. That number again is 410-396-4301. You will, however, need to wait until you receive the formal written notice of the outcome of your case, which should be forthcoming in about 3 to 4 weeks. We certainly ask that you please do not build in the city of Baltimore without first obtaining all of your proper permits. If you have not already done so, if you're here in opposition to any case today, we ask that you please make sure that you sign in on our signing sheet, being held up now by Mr. French. The sign-in sheet allows us to know generally which cases have opposition, but also allows us to know who needs to receive those aforementioned written notices I just talked about. In addition, we do have a couple of cases which are being postponed today, and we may have others as well. So if your case gets postponed, we need to know how to reach you to let you know when those cases will be going forward. The procedure for when the cases are called is that if you're the appellant, you'll come forward and you'll stand to our left or your right. The opposition, if any, will stand to our right or your left. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you all sworn in, and then we'll begin with the appellant, who given the opportunity to present their side of things, present any argument, documents, testimony, etc., in support of their arguments and positions. Respond to any questions which the board may have, and generally tell us what the posture of the case is, what it is that's being sought, etc. Once the appellant is concluded their presentation, we'll then turn to the opposition, if any, who'll be given the opportunity to do the same, present their documents, witnesses, etc., in support of their positions. Once the opposition has concluded, we'll then return back to the appellant, who given the opportunity to respond to any points brought up by their opposition, and then to offer a closing statement. We won't be going back and forth, unnecessarily delaying things any longer than is necessary. We'll generally be calling the cases in the order in which they appear on the docket after we first dispense with some preliminary issues. First, as I had mentioned, we do have some cases which are being postponed today. These cases will not be going forward. 2016-45, 1213 Edmondson Avenue, Anthony Ogbukiri. That case is not going to be going forward today. In addition, 2017-193, 1008 South Kenwood Avenue. We have that also as being postponed. So if you are here on any of those cases, please make sure that you've signed in on the signing sheet so we can let you know when those cases will not be going forward, as they will not be going forward today. Next, we have one case where it appears that we may have a posting issue. 2017-177, 3238 Esther Place, Carlos Mexicanos. If you can come forward, sir, and who's here in opposition to that case? If you could come forward, sir.
Hi, I'm a representative from Councilman Cohen's office.
Okay. All right. Sir, you're Mr. Mexicanos?
Yes, I am.
Okay, and preliminarily, we had gotten a request for a translator. Do you need a translator to move forward today?
I'm with him accompanying him. My name is Marilyn Morales Rodriguez. He
Okay.
asked me to accompany him because of his limited English
Okay.
proficiency. So it's up to the board if I'm allowed to.
Yes, certainly. If you would translate, that'd be fine. And sir, your name is?
My name is Patrick Lumberg, and I'm the president of the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association, for which this property resides.
Okay. And ma'am?
My name's Heather Savino. I'm a representative from Councilman Cohen's office.
Okay. And as we understand it, there was an issue raised regarding the posting of this property. Is that correct, sir?
Yes, I visited the property this morning to take some photographs, and I noticed that there was no signage posted on the premises, at least on the Esther-facing side. I have photos to back it up as well from this morning.
Okay.
There's nothing visible that states this appeal is happening today.
Okay. If you can pass that to the applicant.
Yes.
Por eso es lo que le estaba diciendo del letrero. Él pasó por la propiedad hoy en la mañana, tomó fotos, que el letrero adecuado anunciando este evento que está sucediendo hoy no está el letrero puesto. Eso es lo que le está.
There are 3 photos here. So this one, and then this one, and that one. So.
Your name again?
Heather Savino. I'm from Councilman Cohen's office.
Savino?
Yep, Savino.
Okay. And sir, did you place a sign on the property about this hearing today?
Usted puso un letrero en su propiedad anunciando este evento que se está sucediendo hoy?
Yeah, I have the paper, but I understand 100% what write in the paper, and I put the sign that he have here, but no sabía lo otro que tenía que poner.
This is where the English deficiency comes in. And I did explain this to him earlier today. I'm just learning about all this. When he received the paperwork that explained to him the sign that needed to be put up, he was under the impression only the sign with what's on there, the name of the business and contact telephone number. And I explained to him, no, everything in that box has to be on the sign and placed there prior to this hearing. So
Okay.
that's where the confusion came in, and that's
Gotcha.
why the sign that you were looking for was not there this morning.
Okay, all right. So there's a requirement under the statute that before the board can proceed on any case, the property must be posted continuously for 21 days prior to the hearing date. Because there was no sign posted on the property and providing public notice of this hearing, we can't go forward today. So what you would need to do, you wouldn't have to refile the case, but you would have to put up a sign. I believe that on the appeal paperwork that you received, it should tell you everything that should need to be placed on there. But that sign will have to be up continuously for 21 days prior to any hearing of this matter. Looking at the calendar, the first date in July would be July 4th. The board does not convene then. So the next hearing date that you would be able to get this in on would be July the 18th. And the sign would have to be posted continuously for 3 weeks prior to that date, if that's the date that you were going to be moving forward on, but we can't move forward today.
Por ley, el letrero tiene que estar mostrando este evento 21 días consecutivos antes de la fecha del juicio aquí. La próxima vez que tienen disponible es en julio. Sería el 4 de julio, el próximo, o sea, el martes que podrían venir, pero no va a haber, porque es feriado, no va a haber evento. Después sería... I'm sorry, what was the date in July that would be available?
July the 18th is the first date.
Julio 18 sería la primera fecha disponible para usted. Tendría que tener el letrero puesto como está en el papel que le dieron, escrito, por 21 días consecutivos antes de esa fecha.
Okay, but
Hoy no puede proseguir el caso.
I never use the professional sign, or it's okay if I
You can handwrite it,
No puede escribir de mano.
but it has to,
pay $500 for this.
yeah. So you can handwrite the sign. The sign, there are instructions as to how big the lettering has to be, and you have to make sure that you follow those instructions, because if you don't, and we've had other people who've misunderstood and they've come in with the sign, it's the wrong size, or the lettering is too, they've got the correct sign dimensions, but the letters were not the appropriate height, that doesn't count either. So it has to be, the letters have to be the right size, the sign has to be the right size in order for the sign to be complying. There's also been a request from the opposition that because there are a number of non-English speakers in the neighborhood, if the sign could be posted not just in English but also in Spanish, so that those people living in the neighborhood who do not speak or read English would be able to read and understand the sign.
Que tengo que hacer en inglés.
En inglés y en español, porque hay una gran población en esa área que no habla inglés, para que lo entiendan en
Yeah,
ambos
make two
inglés y
sign.
Yes.
tiene que ser del tamaño que especifica, las letras tienen que ser del tamaño que especifica. Todo que tiene que ser de las especificaciones.
Okay. Do you still have the paperwork telling you what the...
¿Todavía tiene ese documento?
Yes, I have.
Yeah, that's the one, yeah. So On there, it's got the instructions for how high or how big the letters have to be and what the dimensions of the sign have to be. So you want to make sure that you follow those instructions.
Okay.
Aquí el tamaño del letrero, el tamaño de las letras, todas las especificaciones están aquí. El letrero tiene que ser hecho a estas especificaciones.
Ma'am, I'm not promoting them, but there's a sign shop right down the street who I know does these types of signs, and they're very familiar with the guidelines.
The requirements.
That's just a suggestion.
Oh, okay.
But I'm not promoting them.
Which way?
I think it's called the sign shop, just for.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I
Thank
think they've got an awning out there you can see.
Yeah.
All right.
Just one more thing I'd like to add for the record as well. As the application stands currently, the Patterson Park Neighborhood Association is opposing this conditional use. However, we'd like to utilize this time to talk with you, talk with the owner, the business owner, the property owner, meet with the councilman's office and the community to hopefully come to some agreements so that doesn't have to be the case when we come back here in July. So that's what I get in for now, and the reasons why have been submitted to the board as well.
Okay, and I certainly would encourage the parties to use the intervening delay productively and try to see if they can have a dialogue. This is the email, I guess, that we have regarding the position of the community association. But it would be useful for the parties to have a dialogue during this period of delay so that as Representative said, that they're here currently in opposition, but they are, it sounds like they're amenable to not being opposed so long as there are some ground rules that are in place. But I leave that to both sides to,
We'll start those discussions today. Thank you.
and to the extent that the councilman's office can be, can participate in that, that would be pretty useful, I think.
Thank you, Chairman.
Okay.
We're-
All right.
Does he now just wait for some type of mailing for the next?
Well, what you'll want to do is, if you can step down to Mr. Baumgartner, he can figure out if you want to go forward on the 18th, he can get you on the schedule for then. If the 18th isn't a date that works for you, then you can schedule an alternative date, but it would have to be after the 18th. And once you figured out that date, you can move forward with creating the sign and posting it, and then just make sure that the sign is up every day of the 21 days. Sometimes signs fall down or people tear them down, et cetera. And so if that happens, you have to make sure that you go back and put it back up, because if it's down for a full day, then
And
the
with the
21
21
days.
days start all over again? Okay, understood.
Okay?
Thank you. Can I? Okay.
All right. Thank you all. All right. Next, we're going to be turning to our consent agenda, and the consent agenda consists of cases where the zoning board staff has reviewed the files in these matters and determined, the board has determined that there is sufficient information to approve these appeals on a consent basis. We're going to call the consent cases together as a group. So as I call off each case, if you can come forward and try to stay in the order in which you're called. Once everyone is up here, we'll get you sworn in as a group. We'll call each case in turn, and you can offer any additional information that you would like to have added to the record at that time. First case on the consent agenda is 2017-112, 1505 through 1507 Roland Heights Avenue, Nate Prettle. And 2017-113, 4301 through 4305 La Plata Avenue, Nate Prettle. Next up will be 2017-142, 1800 North Smallwood Street, Wilbur Brown. And then will be 2017-155, 2100 East Fayette Street, Adam Carballo. Next will be 2017-183, 3405 O'Donnell Street, Matt Nofel. Then 2017-184, 107 East Fort Avenue, Rick Vornador. And after that will be 2017-186, 3431 Benson Avenue, Ben Pelletier.
You're getting a backup over here.
Folks, are you here for a case? Okay, if you want to come up, you can stand with him. There you go. 2017-187, 2044 Bank Street, Nicholas Nagy. 2017-195, 6040 through 6042 Harford Road, Daniel Trossman. 2017-196, 1817 Maryland Avenue, Nate Prettle. I'll get back to it. Okay. David,
Yeah, can.
okay. And then 188. There's the hand that I got crossed out.
Which one?
188.
Reynolds Street?
Yeah. Okay.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. 2017-201, 5 South Curley Street, Frank Federico. 2017-202, 603 South East Avenue, Andrew Lair. 2017-206, 1729 St. Paul Street, Nate Prettle. And last, 2017-188, 1438 Reynolds Street, Mike Coster. Okay, is that everyone? All right. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their right hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, calling the first case, 2017-112, 1505 through 1507 Roland Heights Avenue, and 2017-113, 4301, 43 through 4305 La Plata Avenue, Nate Prettle and Al Berry. Mr. Berry.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm
Good
glad to
afternoon,
be
sir. We have this an application to consolidate lots, subdivide, and construct 95 three-story single-family dwellings at these locations. Is that correct?
Yes, it's a total plan of 130 townhouses in the Medfield community, replacing an industrial.
95 on one.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
they're
going to clarify that in a second.
So if you like, I don't want to
Okay.
belabor the fact, but.
Sure. And just to clarify the record, as to appeal number 112, the number of single-family dwellings is 95. And as to appeal number 113, the proposal is to construct 35 single-family dwellings on those properties. That's correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Thank you. Martin French for the Baltimore City Planning Department. Planning Department has been working with the applicant for an extended period of time, and this site plan has gone through a number of iterations, as we all know. The department is prepared to recommend approval and does recommend approval of the proposed variances for lot area, lot coverage, front yard setback, rear yard setback, and building height, subject to the condition that the proposed development is completed in accordance with the subdivision plan, development plan, and landscape plan approved by the Planning Commission. The cause for the variances, as Mr. Berry may also elucidate, is the site itself is one in which most of the property, or a large part of the property, is subject to various restrictions on the ability to use the property for development purposes. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. And Mr. Berry, is your client amenable to the conditions offered by the planning department?
Yes, we are scheduled for subdivision approval before the Planning Commission next Thursday. We look forward to that. I'm here with Ray Jackson, who's the contract purchaser.
Afternoon, sir.
We've been working with the Medfield community and the Community Law Center. You have an agreement, I think, in your file. And we look forward to being approved under Transform Baltimore, as well as the city's new subdivision regulations next week.
That's correct. And for the record, this appeal is being decided under I guess you have the distinct honor of being the first case approved under the new zoning code. the file in this appeal having been completed yesterday. Is there anything further you'd like to offer to supplement the record? Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed this application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Great, thank
Good luck
you
tonight.
very much.
Take care. Next up, 2017-142, 1800 North Smallwood Street, Wilbur Brown.
Yes, good evening.
Afternoon, sir. We have this as an application to use the first floor as a beauty shop. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, is there anything from the planning department?
Planning Department recommends approval of this application. We have spoken with the applicant concerning the issue of the size of the nonconforming use of the property and confirmed that this property has been used as a nonconforming use continuously and that this proposed use would be carved out of the existing nonconforming floor area. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And Mr. Brown, was there anything that you would like to offer to supplement the record in this case?
Well, I was born and raised in that community there. I have an office there. I have a masonry company, me and my brother as well. And we're trying to do something positive for the community. I had the president of the community association with me here as well. So I'm trying to give back to the community, helping out the community. I do all sorts of things in the community, you know, just try to keep it up because the resources not coming our way. So me and my brother, we try to do as much as we can to try to uplift the community and keep it going.
Okay. And Councilman, was there anything that you would like to offer?
Nothing more than just a stand in support of the applicant. Thank you.
Okay. And also for the record, this case is being, is proceeding under the new zoning code. So you have the distinct privilege of being the second case approved under the new zoning code. The file in this case having been completed yesterday. Was there anything further that you would like to offer?
That's pretty much it.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck. Take care.
Yep.
Thank you. I feel like getting my walk.
2017-155, 2100 East Fayette Street, Adam Carballo.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. We have this an application to subdivide into 2 lots, raise garages and portions of rear additions, construct second and third floor rear additions, and use as 2 single-family dwellings. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department recommends approval of the application, subject to the condition that all construction, demolition, and alterations to the existing structure are completed in accordance with the subdivision plan and development plan approved by the Planning Commission. Thank you.
Okay. And Mr. Carballo, are those conditions offered by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. For the record, this case is proceeding under the old zoning code, so unfortunately you're not the third under the new one, but that's okay. Anything further?
No, sir.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you.
Good luck. Next up, 2017-183, 3405 O'Donnell Street, Matt Nofel.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. We have this as an application to construct a 2-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. French, is there anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Nofel, is there anything further you would like to add to supplement the record in your case?
No, sir.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed your application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
Thank you. Have a good
Good luck.
afternoon.
Take care. Next, 2017-184, 107 East Fort Avenue, Rick Vonador.
Jeff Bornador, Rick Bornador's partner.
Afternoon, sir. Good to see you again.
Yes, sir.
We have this an application to construct a 2-story rear addition and rooftop deck at this location. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Vornador, is there anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No, sir.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck.
Thank you. Have a good afternoon.
Take care. Next, 2017-186, 3431 Benson Avenue, Ben Pelletier.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir. We have this an application to install 8 antennas and ground equipment to existing telecom tower at this address. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Yes. Planning Department recommends approval of the application, subject to these conditions. The antennas and related equipment must be painted if required to ensure they are visually unobtrusive. The panel antennas and related equipment will be mounted as illustrated in the plans and elevations submitted to planning, and the applicant will adequately mitigate any adverse effect as specified in the report of the Historical and Architectural Preservation Division of the Department of Planning in accordance with that report's recommendations. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Pelletier, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
All right. Anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record?
That's all.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Next, 2017-187, 2044 Bank Street, Nicholas Nagy.
Yes, sir.
Afternoon. Sir, we have this an application to construct a 3-story side infill addition and second floor rear addition at this location. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Nagy, anything further you would like to offer to supplement the record in your case?
No, sir.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you, sir.
Take care. Next, 2017-195, 6040 through 6042 Harford Road, Daniel Trossman.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
For the record,
Afternoon,
Gary
Mr. Maslin.
Maslin, on behalf of Mr. Prosser.
All right, and Mr. Maslin, we have this an application to use the premises as 38 resident assisted living and 90 adult, adults daycare with 21 parking spaces. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Planning Department recommends approval of this application. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Maslin, anything further to supplement?
My client reached out to Community Association. They're in support of his application. Also, the Transportation Department also approved this application. And he's going to create a lot of employment in the community, be hiring from the local community. So it's going to be a big asset, we think, to the residents. And a lot of the residents will be able to take advantage of his adult daycare facility. We're all getting older, unfortunately.
Unfortunate reality of life, isn't it? Anything further, gentlemen?
No.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right.
Good seeing you.
Next, likewise, 2017-196, 1817 Maryland Avenue, Nate Prettle.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mr. Pro. We have this an application to construct a new 4-story building to house 15 efficiency units and first floor commercial space at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department?
Thank you. This department notes that this property is located in the Charles North Revitalization Area or Renewal Plan area, and therefore recommends approval of this application be subject to the condition that all improvements are completed in accordance with plans and designs approved by the Department of Planning. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Prettle, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
All right. Anything further to supplement the record in your case?
Yeah, I'd add that you should have a letter of support from the Charles North Community Association in your file.
Yeah. Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Great. Thank you.
Good luck. You got another one here, 2017-206, 1729 St. Paul Street. We have that as an application to use the premises as 5 dwelling units. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no objection to this application. Thank you.
All right. Mr. Prettle, anything further you'd like to add to supplement the record?
This project also has a support letter from Charles North Community Association as well.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
All right. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal. Good luck.
Thank you. I should mention I'm also here on behalf of 603 Southeast Avenue, which is right in between these two.
Okay. All right. We have that. It's appeal number 2017-202, 603 Southeast Avenue. Mr. Prettle appearing for Andrew Lair. That is an application to construct a 2-story rear addition and rooftop deck at that location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. And Mr. Prettle, anything further you would like to add to supplement the record in that case?
Nothing further.
Okay. Zoning board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there is sufficient information to approve your appeal.
2000.
Thank
you.
Do you have any others that we've got? We've got two more.
I think that's it.
Okay, good. 2017-201, 5 South Curley Street, Frank Federico. Yeah. Wasn't sure if he was appearing. Calling again, 2017-201, 5 South Curley Street, Frank Federico. All right. All right, and last, 2017-188, 1438 Reynolds Street, Mike Coster.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Coster. We have this as an application to construct a 2-story rear addition with rear and rooftop decks at this location. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. Mr. French, anything for the planning department with respect to this appeal?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Okay, and Mr. Coster, anything further you would like to add to something the record in this case?
No, sir.
Okay. Zoning Board staff, having previously reviewed the application, we have determined that there's sufficient information to approve the appeal.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Take care.
Mr. Burgunder, would you like to be heard on the matter? or-
Yes.
Okay, I saw you lurking back there.
Lurking, so, in the kindest way possible, I assume,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Thank you. I'm here for appeal, I think it's 120.
Yes, 2017-120, 3419 through 3433 Old Frederick Road. That we have that as Isaac Orzana.
Right,
as
I'm
the
here
appellant.
on behalf of Mr. Vazana. We'd respectfully like to withdraw the request without
Okay.
prejudice
Okay.
in favor of reapplying under the new zoning code.
Okay.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right, so for the record, 2017-120 is withdrawn.
Thank you.
See you in a few weeks. All right, next, we're going to address the remainder of our docket, which will include cases for which opposition is signed in. Frequently, we found that opposition is the result of either a lack of communication or miscommunication amongst the parties. And it can be useful to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue between themselves to see if they can resolve whatever their dispute is. Obviously, if there are two parties in a dispute and they come forward and ask the board to resolve it, one of those two parties is bound to go away disappointed with the result. And so this is your opportunity to avoid that unhappy fate. We're going to call off the cases where opposition has signed in. I'm just going to ask you to stand where you are. We'll ask if there has been dialogue between the parties, and we'll also ask whether or not the parties would either like to have a dialogue or continue having a dialogue to see if they can't reach an agreement. You certainly are not required to speak to one another, but we certainly do encourage and appreciate it. If you do choose to have a dialogue, we just ask that you please take you just take that conversation out the double doors to your rear, and you can come back in whenever you've either worked something out or you've kind of reached an impasse and you're sort of done talking, and we'll call you each in turn. 2017-41, 5523 Gwinoak Avenue, Cynthia Hudson. Okay, and I'm guessing you folks are with the opposition?
No.
You're, okay. And who has signed in opposition in that case? You folks? Okay.
Back here.
Back there. All right. Have you all spoken or?
Yes, we did speak.
Okay.
And we would like to present our case to the board.
Okay. Have a seat. We'll call you in turn. Next, 2017-143, 3400 Boston Street, Caroline Hecker.
We have met with representatives of the neighborhood during delivery season.
Mhm.
I don't believe further discussions will be productive, but happy to.
Okay.
If I just may,
Mhm.
as to what is specifically being requested today, which pertains to the lot variance on, I believe it's the Boston Street side as well as the Highland or or just the Bayless side.
Mhm.
There is not an opposition to that, but obviously we're not waiving anything we have to, as far as negative appeal or anything relating to the issues that we have overall with our other issues, which are height and so on and so forth, which I understand are not at issue particularly today.
Okay. All right. Just have a seat and we'll call you in turn.
On the same issue, but maybe not aligned.
Okay.
I'm happy to wait to speak in the future. I can
Sure, I was just saying that, right now is just to offer the parties an opportunity to have a dialogue amongst one another. If you would not like to speak to them, you don't have to. If you would, you can speak to them and just go out.
I was just going to clarify that I did also have that opportunity to speak, but to the extent my neighbor has voiced non-opposition, I am voicing opposition.
Okay.
So despite our opportunity to dialogue, I remain.
Okay, all right. Sure.
Yeah, we all remain in opposition, but not as to the
Yes,
variance
as to
side.
that as well.
Oh, as to that too?
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll get that sorted out. Any others? Nope, not quite a contentious crowd today. All right. I didn't have anyone sign in on. Okay, first case, 2017-170, 1321 Western Avenue, Nate Prettle.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, Mr. Prettle. You've already been sworn, so we'll just jump into this one. We have this as an application to replace a general advertising sign to a height of 70 feet and construct a V-shaped sign configuration. Is that correct?
That is correct to an extent. I'll get into some potential changes once we start the testimony.
Okay. And do we have staff reports? Planning.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that the proposal is to convert from two essentially parallel sign faces to a V-shaped display of the sign faces. Noted that increasing the spread between the sign faces would trigger a zoning code provision, which requires that each sign face then have its square footage counted separately against the limitation. And since general advertising signs or billboards are non-conforming uses, this would constitute a substantial increase in the non-conforming use area. And therefore, the department recommended disapproval of the portion of the application relating to replacement of the existing double-faced general advertising sign with a V-shaped billboard sign, because the proposed V-shaped design would enable a doubling of sign area of a non-conforming sign, which is prohibited by either the current zoning code or the replacement zoning code, the one that's now in effect as of yesterday. With regard to the LED conversion, the Department of Planning recommends approval of that portion of the appeal concerning replacement of the existing sign faces with LED faces, only with the following conditions if the applicant proceeds with the application under the terms and conditions of the zoning code in effect as of this date. First, that the entire face of the existing billboard or general advertising sign is approved for alteration to a digital screen, and that this alteration may be installed in incremental steps at the appellant's option without the need for further land use approval, so long as the billboard adheres to the operational limits or other conditions that may be imposed by the board. Second, that the performance of the digital screen billboard conform to all the requirements of section 11-502 by having a minimum dwell time of 10 seconds, that it will not increase the area of the existing billboard, that it will not increase the degree of illumination, and it will not have any flashing, blinking, fluctuating, or otherwise animated light. Third, that the digital screen billboard will not have any animations, movie clips, and/or sound elements. Fourth, that the digital screen will default entirely to black in the event of a failure of the remote control system or an interruption of advertising copy, meaning text, images, or both. And finally, that the digital sign will have automatic brightness controls so that the sign will not constitute a hazard to passing motorists at night or during inclement weather. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Mr. Prettle, are those conditions offered by the Planning Department acceptable to you?
They are.
Okay. So why don't you tell us about what you're proposing here, and if you can address also the position of the Department of Planning with regard to the V-shaped construction of the sign.
Sure. So in general, this is a pretty straightforward and common request to convert what is we'll call it a paper billboard to a digital billboard, which is being done all over the city, and this board's approved probably dozens over the past few years. There are two issues that were brought up by both Mr. French in the Planning Department as well as zoning board staff earlier this morning. I'll tell you, the first one was regarding the height. Our contractor for the owner had measured the sign at 70 feet prior to us submitting the application. We've since found some documentation that the original sign was at 64 feet. I'm happy to have a condition saying this sign will be no higher than the existing sign, whether that's 64 or 70. I don't know if he erred in his measurement, but that's really not an issue. I spoke to my client this morning, so if it's the 64, it's 64 feet. In regards to the provision that Mr. French cited, it's a kind of an odd provision of the code, basically saying if the two sides of the billboard, and this is a double-sided billboard, are 2 feet or less close together, the parallel billboards, that counts as one sign face. So as a practical matter, there are two different advertisements on either side. I'll submit some photos showing that the distance between those two is actually about 6 feet. So that provision cited by planning does not apply in this case, and is not a doubling of the square footage of the sign. Here's a couple others, and if the board requires any, these are just photos. This is kind of last minute. Anything else, I can submit that, but it's quite clear that it's well over 2 feet, so that provision does not apply.
Okay. Mr. French?
I've not provided these copies, but I'm happy to do so if he wants to. I showed them to him beforehand.
Sure.
I'm sorry. Section
Again, as a
17-304,
practical matter,
the
square
replacement code.
footage of the actual advertising space does not change. It's by no means a doubling. There's two sides existing. There'll be two sides, except the angle is different. But that's not even what the zoning code provision is referencing.
Or 11.
And I can point to another recent appeal at 1201 South Sharp Street that had the same issue. Planning had their same comment, and the board approved it because I believe there was some testimony speaking to the distance between the two billboard faces.
Planning's comment would be simply that this would be facilitated in terms of the board's making a decision by having an actual dimensioned drawing of the sign as it currently exists, showing the amount of the support structure, separation, and then the placement of the two billboard faces in relation to that support structure. Because the code excludes, I'm looking for the specific quotation here, excluding necessary supports or uprights is the terminology used in the code. So what we're missing in the testimony so far is what is the actual distance between the sign faces in relation to the necessary support structure that is in place currently. And
I'm happy to provide that, if the board wants to wait for any sort of resolution. I also have some state inspection reports that provide dimensions. They're just not available. I just actually received them as I was waiting here. So, I would be happy to have a conditional approval based on providing that information.
So under section 11203 of the sign requirements, in computing the area of the sign, it talks about multi-face signs. If the sign has two or more faces, the area of all faces is included in determining the area of the sign, except as specified in paragraph 2, which says if they're placed back to back and are nowhere more than 2 feet from one another, excluding necessary supports and uprights of the area the sign is taken, it's considered to be one face. So it's excluding the support.
Sure.
Doesn't count towards that 2 feet.
Yes, I'm aware of that, and I think we're still over that 2 feet. And as a practical impact to the city, versus one face or two, I'm not sure where that provision came from, but it's always been 2 faces. Again, we're prepared to show that it is absent the supports more than 2 feet, and I can provide a diagram.
Well, if I understand the position of the planning department and what the code is getting at, it's that where you have a single-faced sign, that there's a front and there's a back, and that's providing sort of visibility to traffic coming in opposite directions. And the concern with taking that and making it into a V shape is that you're changing that visibility angle sufficiently that there's a concern about the degree of distraction. I guess maybe it's something to do with, I don't know if it's sort of the visibility that comes up at night, particularly with the digital sign versus a static paper sign or what have you. There's also just simply the basic reality that what the code allows is that you're allowed a certain dimension and you're sort of given a plus by saying, well, you know, you're only allowed this one dimension, so we're restricting you in the size, but we'll give you the back of the sign as kind of sort of maybe to ameliorate the effect of the decreased or the restriction on the size, and by taking that and turning it into two signs which now face the street, that there's that you're sort of disrupting that statutory framework. But
I appreciate that, but I would also add that I believe, is my belief, and my testimony today and anything else subsequently is that we are not covered by this provision, and that the board has been approving these V shapes quite frequently, including, I can submit a resolution for an identical appeal, the same owner at 1201 South Sharp Street, which is actually the same billboard company, identical in every respect as this one that was approved last July. So.
All right. If you can supplement the record with the drawings, it would probably kind of help kind of clear up what the stat is. So.
Sure, I can submit some drawings as well as the inspection reports that have additional dimensions. And I can.
Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's fine.
But I wanted to point out that, just to add fuel to the fire, in 1988, the board heard an appeal to raise the height of an existing double-faced billboard, general advertising sign, to the current 64 feet. So at that time, the board treated it as a double-faced sign. So, but it said it was an existing billboard, but then it said there were no prior appeals. So I don't know how the existing billboard got authorized. So I think it would take some additional research to sort it all out.
Mm-hmm.
I was not the representative of the applicant in 1988. I was getting ready probably for first grade or something. So.
All right. Is there anything further?
No, not at this time. And I'll provide, again, these additional documents, and if it requires speaking with the executive director further, I'm happy to do so.
Okay.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. 2017-174, 2609 Edmondson Avenue, Henry Edmond. All right, and Mr. Edmond, we have this as an application to enclose a front porch at this location. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. If you can raise your right hand to be sworn, please.
Will you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Do we have staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Mr. Edmonds, why don't you tell us a little bit about what we're proposing here?
I'm proposing to enclose the front porch with aluminum siding and adding a 5x4 sliding window and two 8-foot windows fixed on each side, just enclosing the property.
Okay. Are there any other properties on your block that have that similar configuration?
There's some on the next block, not on that particular block. I don't remember.
Okay. And is there any particular purpose for it, or just sort of convenience and closing in
Aesthetics,
from?
just, yeah, that convenience and aesthetic pleasure. Make,
Okay.
beautify the property.
All right. And from the drawing here, looks like you've got, in the front, you've got the doorway, the window sort of centered between the door and
There's a doorway
the
in the
edge.
front, and then in the middle of the property, there's a sliding window, and then there's two
On the
windows on
sides?
each side.
All right.
I wanted to mention that in this block, the basements are elevated above grade so that the first few feet is already enclosed with basement windows underneath the porch.
Right.
Pretty much on the
It's a
whole
cement,
block.
on a cement.
So the actual lot coverage is already there.
Okay.
The point I was trying to make.
Gotcha. Okay. Anything else?
Excuse me, sir? No, I
Anything
don't.
else? Okay. Thank you very much, sir. Two 2017-185, 3612 through 3614 South Hanover Street, Yoon Park.
Hello.
Your name in?
Sophia Walker.
Okay. And Ms. Walker, we have this as an application to use the property known as 3612 as restaurant with live entertainment and dancing. Is that correct?
That is not correct. Live entertaining, no dancing.
Okay.
That's correct, yes.
All right. If you can raise your right hand and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
All right. Do we have staff reports?
Thank you. Planning Department has reviewed this application, noted that this property has had an unfortunate history, and on that basis is making a recommendation for some very specific conditions that should be imposed upon approval of the application. The first is that there is adequate off-street parking available to support the proposed use in accordance with zoning code requirements. The second is that the interior of the property, which contains a set of doors connecting the unit, which is the subject of this appeal, with another unit that is not the subject of this appeal, should be secured in a manner approvable under the Fire and Safety Code for emergency use only, with an alarm connected to the appropriate municipal signaling system. Thank you.
Okay. And Ms. Walker, are those conditions stated by the Planning Department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
Okay. And why don't you tell us about what's being proposed here?
So I have had this Jamaican restaurant for almost 3 years. We really helped to revitalize the neighborhood. We now bring in a lot of traffic because people from all over the Baltimore area come to our restaurant. We have realized that some of our customers enjoy dining in the restaurant, and we thought it would be nice to be able to provide a reggae band or just have something, maybe some karaoke or poetry, for people to be able to entertain themselves while they eat. And so that is the reason for putting in for this application.
Okay. And you said that the proposal is for music only and no dancing.
No dancing. We don't have the space for dancing.
All right.
And that is noted on their application that they filled out.
Yes.
That they would not have dancing.
I see that. All right. And it says that your hours of operation as a restaurant or tavern are, yes, Monday through Thursday from 9 to 10. And on Friday and Saturday, it's from 9 to 11. And with no hours on Sundays, you're closed.
Correct.
In response, though, to the question regarding hours of operation for live entertainment or dancing, you've got it from 8 p.m. to 2 a.m.
So my
for
thought,
Friday and Saturday.
my thought would be that if we had the band, it would either be on a Friday night or a Saturday night. So to extend the time period for people to come in, dine in, and have the band. And so to extend until 2 a.m. for the end time, but that is negotiable.
Okay. Because I guess what I'm a little bit confused by is if there's only music, no dancing, and the idea is to have music while people are seated and eating, if you're no longer serving food at 10, and then or 11, rather, and then, but you're still open until 2 with the music.
So for now, the time is as it is because there's no reason to extend. We have nothing other than food to serve you. But if we have a band that's present and people are eating, if we have a buffet style setup going on and people are still there, then I wanted to extend the hours for the end time, for the times that we do have a live band.
Okay. All right.
I guess the live band is different than a DJ because the live band can energize the crowd and, it can allow people to want to sit there and just relax and enjoy a little bit longer.
Okay. You've got a maximum occupancy of 135?
That's correct.
What I'm looking for is, do you have a drawing?
Yes, it was submitted.
Here we go. Okay, so when I look at this, I see that you've got the stage, but then I also see DJ booth.
So the DJ booth is on top of a stand that's in the stage. If this were the DJ booth, the equipment is there, and then the band is right next to it. So it's just one unit.
Okay. I'm having a little bit of a, I guess you're not in this ballroom banquet hall area.
No, that's a completely different area. If I could just point something out to you. So this is a separate building from us. Our building is enclosed right here, just in this square. There's an emergency exit there, and that's what can lead into the other area, but this is a locked door.
Okay.
I believe that's what planning was referring to
Yeah.
in their conditions.
That's what I was going to point out.
So where do people sit and eat?
I can show you here.
Yeah.
I thought I drew tables on me, but the people, when you enter here, you sit to the right. So all the way up to where the stage is for the DJ booth, we have tables and chairs there. To the other side is a long counter, and that's where we serve and cash people for their food.
And the other point, this is not a tavern. They don't have a liquor license, so it's strictly a restaurant.
All right.
Do you allow patrons to bring alcohol with them? Like if
We
you want
don't.
So,
We
okay.
don't.
Any questions?
It's just hard to listen to reggae without wanting to dance, though.
No, the bands are actually pretty entertaining. We would use the local bands that are here in the city, local reggae bands.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
2017-191, 2505 Fleet Street, Tom McCleary.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
My name's Kevin Torella. I'm here in place of Tom. Torella, Tirella.
Okay.
Tirella.
Okay, and Mr. Torello, we have this application to construct a deck at the third floor rear that will provide access to a new rooftop deck and pergola. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right. If you can raise your right hand and be sworn, please, sir.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Do we have staff reports?
Planning Department has no comment on this application. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Mr. Torello, tell us about what's being proposed here.
So we purchased the property in February. There was a rooftop deck at the time with a stairway from a third floor deck. That deck on the rooftop and to a certain degree on the third floor it was decided it had fallen into disrepair. So the deck that was on the rooftop at the time has been removed. We were looking to rebuild the third floor deck to put a new deck on the roof.
Okay. And so what we've got here is that there's a building height of 27 feet in the rear, I guess 30 feet in the front. The deck height from the rear is 33 feet 7 inches. So all under, this is in R8 zoning district, so all under 35 feet. And what we have coming above the 35-foot height limit here is the pergola,
Yep.
Which rises to a height of 38 feet 10 inches, 10 and a half inches, and is 10 by 12.
That, if that's what the design submitted show, that's
All right, and then the total building length is, we have 40 and 12, so the building length is 52 feet, although I think that's inclusive of the deck, yes. So building length is 40 feet. All right, and the deck is at 10 feet is a quarter. Okay. I think I've got that one figured out. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you. All right, 2017-194, 801 through 803 South Broadway, William Christ.
Hi.
Afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
You're Mr. Christ?
No, I'm not. My name is Reginald Rogers. I'm here representing Mr. Chris.
Okay. And sir, your name?
Keskin, Rudy Keskin. I'm the owner of Jimmy's Restaurant and I own the property also.
Okay.
Actually, new owner.
Yes. Can you spell that last name, sir?
Keskin, K-E-S-K-I-N.
Excuse me, what's your first name?
Rustem, R-U-S-T-E-M. That's
Rustem.
Keskin, K-E-S-K-I-N.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You said that that's K-E-S-K-I-N.
K-I-N,
Okay,
correct,
we had
yes,
that
sir.
as
Sharp line.
H-I-N. All right. And your name again, sir?
Reginald Rogers.
Okay. All right, Mr. Rogers, we have this an application to add outdoor table service as accessory to existing restaurant use with carry-out food shop. Is that correct?
That is correct.
All right, gentlemen, if you can raise your right hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir.
All right, do we have staff reports?
We received a letter from the Fells Point Community Association requesting that the appeal be postponed since the association did not receive notification of the appeal until June 3rd. As a result, the Fells Point Community Association doesn't have any information relative to the proposal before the board today.
Okay.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this proposal is to place four top tables and 16 seats on the sidewalk in front of the premises, 2 sets either side of the main entrance door. This would leave about 9 feet of open sidewalk for pedestrian passage in front of the property. Planning Department considers that sidewalk site plan approvable. The department recommends approval of the application be subject to these conditions. A minimum of 8 feet of the sidewalk must remain clear and unobstructed for pedestrian use. The capacity of the outdoor seating area will be not more than 4 tables and 16 patrons. The tables will be limited to those that can seat 4 patrons and are to be kept against the wall of the building. There will be no outdoor bar, no outdoor music, jukebox, or other form of entertainment, and all patrons must be seated for dining and served by wait staff. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, gentlemen, are those conditions stated by the planning department acceptable to you?
Yes, they are.
All right. Now I'm looking at your drawing here, and is there something you need, David?
No.
Okay. Looking at your drawing here, and the drawing, at least the one with the dimensions, is different than the one
Sure.
that we've got.
That picture.
Yeah. So the one here, with the illustration, that looks like it conforms with what the planning department is talking about. The other one, with the dimensions and whatnot, doesn't comply with what the planning department is requesting here as a condition. So
That's the one actually is the.
Okay, so
that's
this
one
is
real-
the one.
That's the
that
one
you're-
real one, yeah.
Okay, all right. And really the biggest thing there that I'm interested in is that just what you're showing is the dimensions here. Now, Mr. French, those dimensions you were talking about, because there's an existing tree planter that's there. Are those dimensions, that is the minimum 8 feet of sidewalk clearance, is that from the tables to the curb or to that
Can I-
sidewalk planter?
I believe that would have been from table to the curb. Yeah, that planter needs to be taken into account, obviously, in the placement of the tables and chairs.
Okay. All right. So then you'd need to work around, I mean, it's reflected, I think, in the drawing that you've got the tables spaced away from
Can I-
the planter, but as Mr. Friend said, you'd need to be able to make sure that the tables aren't placed behind the planter.
Can I explain?
Yes.
Yes, actually is from building to sidewalk is 11 feet.
Yes, I know.
Is table is only 4 feet.
Yes, I know.
Tree span is like 9 feet. Still they have 6 feet is between them.
Yes, that's what's shown on the drawings. It's shown that the distance from the front of the building to the planter is 10 feet 6 inches. The tables on the drawing show them coming out 4 feet.
Correct.
So that's going to leave you the 6 feet of clearance. But the planning department is requesting 8 feet as a condition. So you'd be 2 feet short there. So you just need to make sure that the tables aren't set up behind the planter.
Yeah, yes, sir.
All right. Anything else, gentlemen?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good afternoon, gentlemen.
5-minute break.
That's a given.
For Glen Oak Avenue, there's a provision on the new code. They may wanna It's also but it may get brought up, and I just wanna make sure they have it beforehand.
Title 16.
And then it's where required parking is, but it has the,
Let me see here. Glen Oak.
might be subtitles.
Uh-oh. I missed my page. Yeah, I missed my page on it.
Which one?
This is Glen Oak, right? Yeah. It's just missing a page. It looks like it's 2 pages with only 1. It looks like, is it 1602? 16602.
Right here. So it may get brought up because since it's gonna be under the new code, the places of worship's conditional, and then the parking required based off the fire rated capacity is what they need a variance for.
Okay. All right, thanks. Okay. Sir, do you want to identify yourself for the record, please?
My name is Daniel McCarthy.
All right. And who's Ms. Hudson?
Cynthia Hudson.
All right. And Ms. Hudson, we have this as an application to convert a single-family dwelling to a church that will seat 50 people. Is that correct? All right. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their right hands and be sworn, please.
Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
We have staff reports.
We do. We received 52 pre-filled letters of support for the proposal of the church at the premise. In addition to that, we received a letter in opposition, which was under the title heading of the Howard Park Civic Association. However, members of that association are here and informed me otherwise that it was either a former chair of the association or an individual that's no longer an active member, but the individual is Preston Green. However, his following reasons for the opposition are in 4 parts. One, that the sanctity of the neighborhood will be destroyed if the proposal is approved. The proposal will reduce the desirable green space. The owner has neglected to maintain the yard and control for vegetation, and the conversion of a church will reduce the value of the homes within the immediate area.
Planning Department reviewed this application, noted that this lot does not have a sufficient area for conditional use authorization, and based upon the old zoning code that was in effect at the time this application was filed and the time that this comment was written, the amount of variance of lot area requested would have been 36%. The previous zoning code had a limit of 25% on lot area variances, and on that basis, the department recommended disapproval of the application. Thank you.
And under the, does the department have any opinion as to um, uh, the propriety of the application under the new zoning code?
Department would have no objection under the new code.
All right. Mr. McCarthy or Ms. Hudson, who's going to be speaking?
Well, I think several of us will, but I would start
Okay,
off, if
sure.
it's okay. So, you know, of course, we did apply previously, and we're told that by coming today was I guess yesterday was the first day of the transform code.
Yes.
And that we would be subject to the rules of the new zoning code rather than the old zoning code.
Yes, as I understand it, there were some additional filings which were made, and the application in this case was determined to be complete as of yesterday. So therefore, this case proceeds under the new zoning code. But why don't you tell us a bit about what's being proposed here, the area that it's in, the history of the use of the property, the available facilities, parking, et cetera.
I'll allow Ms. Hudson or Ms. Mosby.
Sure. Okay.
So I'm Ms. Mosby.
You can come up.
I'm Delene Mosby. I share as part owner of that property. That property is going to be used as Transforming Christian Life Ministries. We are on the deed along with Ms. Cynthia Hudson. And so we plan to use it as stated for a 50-seat church. We have been working with Mr. McCarthy, and we do have sufficient parking. We have enough parking on the property that the building is located. We won't be parking on the street. And we plan to use it for a church. We do plan to make ourselves a vital part of that community. We're not planning to come there and take from that community, but we're planning to come and add to that community. I think that we share the same interests, and we have the same goals as the community to keep it well kept, and we plan to offer services to the community. And in fact, we have attended some of the Howard Park Civic Association meetings. We never met those that are standing here, but we have been there. We were there at their most recent meeting that was canceled, and we've been there. We've made ourselves known. We let them know what our intentions were, and I believe some of the letters that you have for support is signed by some of those members.
Okay, and is there a current use of the property?
There's no current use of the property. When we acquired the property, my understanding, had been not in use for a few years. And when we acquired the property, then we began to clean up the area and do a few things. We didn't do a lot of things because we needed to wait until we had this hearing. And so we did do what we could do.
Okay. And so the, I guess the structure that's on the property currently, if you could describe that for me.
So it is it's a corner, a single-family home. It's 3 stories with some property, kind of a lot at the rear of the property. It's on the corner. It was previously used as a church, my understanding is, but it was not zoned for that use, but it was previously used as a church.
Okay. Folks, if we can try to, only one person speaking at a time, makes it very difficult to keep order and figure out who's speaking, but also it makes it difficult if there are multiple people speaking at the same time. You speak over one another. It's hard for us to hear, and it's hard for the recorder to take down. All right, and this drawing that's included with the plan, are these drawings of modifications that are to be made?
This is Dan McCarthy. That is the existing layout of the first floor, which will be used one side for the sanctuary and other for bathrooms and accessory use for that. And then the second floor is our offices that would be, but they are, there's no alterations of any of the partitions.
Okay. And I see that there's, looks to be a parking lot or parking pad that's going to be associated with this?
Correct.
Right. And these are all parking spaces that are on the same lot?
Correct.
All right.
Mr. McCarthy?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just curious, are you working with him personally, or how is your?
I was contacted by a friend who they are using a portion of their building, and he asked me to do this as a favor for him, and I'm here as a citizen who has stood in this spot previously. So my
I was just trying to see if there was a connection with your employer in there.
I'm here as doing a favor.
Thank you.
Under the Transform Baltimore, the minimum lot size requirement is 3,000, and off-street parking is based upon the rated capacity of the building as determined by the fire department. We contacted the fire department and shared the drawings with them, and they, based on, they weren't too happy with the drawings in terms of detail and accuracy as terms to like the footage and so forth. But based on what they reviewed, they found that the assembly would have an occupancy load of 113 people. And the parking requirements are 1 for every 4 of the rated capacity, which would be 28 parking spaces. They're providing 13, I believe. So the board has the authority to allow a variance. It used to be 75% in the new code, in the old code. In the new code, there is no percentage minimum or maximum that the board has the authority to grant up to 100% variance on parking.
So, and as the application notes, the application is for a 50-person sanctuary, and we heard about this just yesterday, the fire marshals. The drawings that were submitted were in compliance with the BMZA regulations. Obviously, the fire marshal has a different set of requirements, and I don't even actually know what they are. I don't know how exactly they came to that.
They no longer just take the seating capacity, but the capacity for the whole building.
Right, so if it was going to be a sanctuary, people would not be worshiping on the second floor if the, so, we had applied for a 50-person capacity sanctuary and provided the requisite number of parking spaces per the 4-to-1 ratio.
Okay. And there's 13 spaces that are being provided?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And do we know what the age of the building is?
We believe it was built in 1920.
Okay. All right. Anything further at this time?
I'd just like to add that
we need your name first.
Reverend C.W. Harris. This congregation is using my facility on Pennsylvania Avenue for their services until hopefully this is approved. We have used Episcopal Housing for what we have done in our community, and they are following the same footstep as community participants and supporting that community. And so what we have done was build schools. We built 300 homes in our community for families, and this is all done under holistic ministries, places for women who are suffering with the addiction of drugs, and an arts program. And so, and then we have the largest urban farm in Baltimore City. So this is what we do as a faith-based organization, and they're following the same footstep. So it's the church in the way that it used to be years ago, where everyone could depend on and really participating in all aspects of what make wholesome living for people in their communities. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Turn to the opposition.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, sir.
My name is Jeffrey Smith. I'm a resident of the Howard Park community and a member of the Howard Park Civic Association. I am here today with some of my neighbors to protest the house that is addressed 5523 Gwen Oak Avenue, Baltimore City, Maryland 21207. The owner is asking the single-family home to be turned into a 50-seat church. The home is owned by Cynthia B. Hudson, Transforming Christian Life Ministries, which she is a resident of Baltimore County, 6619 Dogwood Road. The original owner, Lathenia Francine Davis, gifted the home to Words of Life Ministry Incorporated and Cynthia B. Hudson on April 21st, 2009. On August the 16th, 2016, the home was deeded again to Cynthia B. Hudson and the Transforming Christian Life Ministries. I have completed an internet search and found no listing of either organizations. The property posted a sign, found no list. The property found that they wanted to use the single-family home for a 50-seat church. There are several issues with this home turning into a 50-seat church. The first one is there is no parking. Bowers Avenue, which runs on the side of the home, has no sidewalks and no curbs. Directly in front of the home, there is a bus stop that takes up the entire front of the house. Up at the other corner, at Rogers and Gwen Oak Avenue, there is another bus stop that takes the whole corner of that section of Gwen Oak Avenue. Rooms inside of the home are too small to hold 50 people. I have pictures of the home, which I can share with you. Along with the bus stop out front, and there's a bus stop across the street. And these are all the pictures of inside the home.
Have you shared these with the?
No, I have not. If you care to see the pictures of the inside of the home.
I have seen the inside, but I'll pass that on.
Okay.
Well, you may want to look at the photos to see if the photos accurately reflect the inside of the.
The home is in complete disrepair. Side steps are falling down, front porch is rotting, concrete steps falling apart. Home plumbing needs replaced. Windows have security bars on them, fire hazard. The property is not up to code to be used as a community building. The property lot size is 50.4 feet wide and 192 feet long. The section that they're looking to use for their parking lot is behind the house. There is also a single-car garage on a pad in the back of the house. I have contacted there are 6 churches within less than a mile from 5523 Gwen Oak Avenue, all of which are buildings, not houses. Orchard Park Christian Jubilee, 5023 Gwinoak Avenue, has street parking with curbs, sidewalks, and handicap accessible. Greater Remnant Church of God, 5023 Gwinoak Avenue, street parking with curbs, sidewalks, handicap accessible. Mount Zion Church, 3505 North Rogers and Liberty Heights, large parking lot and street parking, curbs, sidewalks, handicap accessible. Christian Church of Deliverance, 5327 Liberty Heights Avenue, parking lot, street parking, curbs, sidewalks, handicap accessible. Trinity New Birth Intervention, 3600 North Rogers Avenue, parking lot, street parking, curbs, sidewalks, and handicap accessible. Jehovah Witness Kingdom Hall, 5524 Liberty Heights Avenue, parking lot, curbs, street, and handicap accessible. I have contacted all 6 of these churches and questioned the size of their members. On an average worship day, there can be anywhere from 100 to 200 members. On special holidays, weddings, baptisms, it can range from 200 to 300 members. That's a lot of people and a lot of cars. 5523 Gwinoak Avenue could never be able to hold that many members or their cars since there's no parking. Also, the home is not suitable to become a church. A church is a business, and its goal is to reach out to the community to get involved to make the church grow. The sign states 50-seat church. During holidays and special events, who will be there to count to make sure that only 50 people enter? Some of the homes in the area have driveways, and some don't, like mine and most of my neighbors. Most of the residents that live within a few blocks from that location are seniors and middle-aged. If they are forced to park elsewhere due to there is no parking at all for the so-called church, that will put a strain on the homeowners and the community. On May 24th, 2017, a open-top dumpster arrived with a crew of 4 men in a white van. They started cleaning out the house, and one man stated that they're getting ready to make it a church with no current or active permit. I also have a picture of that. We have contacted the permits office, and they informed us that the only permit that has been issued was for the sewer line work dated in January 30th, 2017. The home was listed for sale October 22nd, 2015 for $110,000. It was removed, and then it was relisted again January 30th, 2016 for $105,000. And then listed again on February 2nd, 2016 for $80,000. In my opinion, the reason that Cynthia Hudson and the Transforming Christian Life Ministries wants to use this home is to get a tax break from paying taxes on the home. The home would not sell due to the repairs that are needed to make it a livable single-family home. Why would it be listed for sale, removed, listed again and again? Something does not sound right here. I have the last 3 tax records for the property. July 1st, 2014 to June 30th to 2015, the taxes were paid on time. July the 1st, 2015 to June 30th, 2016, the taxes were paid late, February 23rd, 2016. And as of today, the taxes for this year, July 1st, 2016 to June 30th, 2017, the taxes were paid late, June 30th, 2017, and still have a balance of $16.33. Living in this area, along with growing up here in my grandparents' home, which I own now, there have been several homes sold at a very low price, fixed up and sold, making a profit. The property located on Gwinoak Avenue is in need of some major repairs. The front steps are crumbling, which are concrete. Bathroom and kitchens need gutted and replaced. Fire alarms need installed. This building, a single-family home, is not in any shape to be turned into a church that wants to hold 50 people. Are we going to place a person there to count to make sure that only 50 people enter? If Cynthia Hudson wishes to operate a church, I feel that she needs to find a building with enough parking and a building that will be able to hold events and church services. There are plenty of vacant commercial buildings with parking lots that could accommodate their needs. Thank you. I also have pictures of when the house was listed and then when it was removed. This is the picture of Bowers Avenue going down. If you wish to see those, there's no curbs, no sidewalks. If they make that back part a parking lot, where's the people supposed to walk? Of the front steps and also of the side of the house. Here is an aerial view of the exact property and the bus stops. That's all I have to say.
I'm going to pass that up.
Mm-hmm, sure thing.
Ma'am?
And if you needed the copies of the 2 deeds, I have them as well.
Take whatever it is you'd like us to
Okay.
consider.
Thank you.
Ma'am? If you would state your name and address for the record, please.
Catherine Thomas, 5517 Norwood Avenue. I'm the Vice President of the Howard Park Civic Association. The association finds that converting a house to a church would be a hardship to our residential community. As was previously stated, there are no sidewalks on Bowers Avenue. There are no curbs. There are driveways which people use. If parking is done on Bowers Avenue, it is breaking the law because it then becomes property parking. They have 2 wheels on the property and 2 wheels on the street. And I think the law says you have to have 4 wheels on the street.
Just for the record. We have a drawing that's been submitted showing the property here. Here's the home that's there. There's the front walkway. Here's the parking. The lot depth is 182 feet on this side and 192 feet on that side, with a property width of 53 feet 4 inches. There are hash marks here showing the parking spaces all well within the property. Because as I said before, the property width is 53 feet. So there are parking spaces all shown here up and down the rear of the property, showing where the parking spaces are, and they're all on this one. They're all self-contained.
May I continue?
Yes, please.
The property owners in the 55, 56, and 5700 blocks of Gwynn Oak Avenue are opposed to their becoming a church because of parking. The owners in the 55 and 56, 5700 blocks of Norwood Avenue are opposed to this, simply because of the parking. Since they have spaces for 13, where would the rest of the people park but come in front of our residencies? The 2800 block of Bowers Avenue is against it. Again, there are no curves, no sidewalks. The 28 and 2900 blocks of Silver Hill, the neighbors are against this. The 2800 block of North Rogers Avenue and the 5500 block of Robinwood Avenue. These are all streets in which these residents use Bowers Avenue to come into the neighborhood. With church services being there on Sunday or whenever, we find it would be an inconvenience. Moreover, the church at one time had Bible study, I guess, classes on Friday evening, and there were 8 cars there at the last time, and they parked on the property. Moreover, the owner had the house begun for demolition and gutting the property on May 24th. I called the housing department to get a cease the working order, and they came and issued that on May 25th, and they roped off the porch. And of course, they cited the only permit they had was for sewage, and that was in January. One other thing I would like to ask the group, why was this hearing postponed on April 25th? I was here, and it was postponed to this date. Was there a reason?
Well, the applicant requested a postponement.
Just wanted postponed? Okay. Okay. Mr. Green.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Preston Green. I live at 5518 Norwood Avenue. The rear of my property abuts the rear of the property in question here. The letter that was sent for the April hearing was sent from me as the 12-year President Emeritus of the Howard Park Civic Association, representing the greater good of the community. I'm also the Executive Director of the Howard Park Civic Economic Development Corporation and the Chairman of the Board of the Garwin Oaks Northwest Housing Resource Center. Recently, through Video Lottery Terminal Aid, I was approved as the director, and grants were awarded for a housing survey that not only started in Howard Park and was approved and submitted to city council people who were excited to expand the project that we got started, but it is now currently operating in 8 communities of the Liberty Wabash corridor. The intent of the survey is to identify vacant and nuisance properties so that they could so that the owner can take responsibility to revitalize the community and subsequently make it a more vibrant community. The Howard Park community alone, over the past 12 years that I've been in leadership and engaged in community activity, the research that I did revealed that non-conforming uses related to institutional homes, youth homes, halfway houses, assisted living, daycare properties, single-family homes in our community has been converted to these non-conforming uses, and Howard Park currently has more institutional homes than any of the surrounding counties in Maryland, and that's as far as we went. PG County, Baltimore County, et cetera, Carroll County, et cetera. The desecration of our community has been a grave concern because we are a hidden jewel in the city. We're a golf course community. We're a healthy neighborhoods community. The further breakdown of removing tax-based properties in our home, removing voting people, affects the funding that comes to our community through the census, and it also lowers the tax base as far as the city is concerned. My biggest concern is, as a 38-year veteran, or shall I say, resident of Howard Park in the same location, that sanctity of the community will be disrupted by turning this property into a commercial building. Not only will Sunday services be held, but there's also all kinds of activities that are going on. And to have peace at my house, which is directly there, turned into an institution that is, and I'm a Christian, I'm a Baptist. I have no complaints about churches, but I am concerned about converting a property that is residential, 1,700 square feet for 50 people. The city's fire department might approve it, but it's seemingly a little bit, it's pushing the limits, and all churches are developed with intention to grow. Further, being involved, actively involved in the community association, there should have been some, or I would think that there would be some communication with the board officially or the community association officially that would identify the desire to be good neighbors. Like I said, I've lived in that home for 38 years. I've raised my family, and we still live there, and I've not met the people that own the property. And I am the adjacent property owner. Let's see, that's enough, I stopped. I just wanted to share that I have grave concerns and that the city is being removed from its, I think, neighborhood environment into something that's sort of chopped up and broken. It's something like I saw in West Virginia, and that'll be my last word, where we have a trailer park sitting next to a grand estate because zoning variances were allowed by municipal employees that did not consider the communities where these changes were made. Thank you.
I was in the ladies' room. I'd like to say something.
Sure. Were you sworn in, ma'am?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Janet Harrington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great, have you been sworn in?
No, I haven't.
Raise your hands. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. My main concern is Mr. Green touched on that. Any church that is planted with the intention to grow. So therefore, this just in itself is a major problem. No church is planted to stay at 50 people. The lady spoke and said that they wanted to embrace themselves in the community and give spiritual enlightenment. Most of us, as Mr. Green has said, have been in this community 20, 30, 40 plus years. We all already have our places of worship that we go to. The problem is like Mr. Green's house. If he wants to relax on Wednesday afternoon when they have Bible study, there are cars constantly coming. There are choir rehearsals revolved in churches. There are family and reunion days to bring other people in, which is not just on Sunday, it's all the time. The bus on Gwen Oak Avenue is a bus that runs mostly on the business days. It runs on Saturday and Sunday, but you have maybe 3 buses on Sunday. So therefore, people who don't have cars, they're gonna have to find some place. They can't just take the public transportation. What I'm saying is they're gonna have to bring cars there, their families and friends, and on the evenings, the bus runs on a very limited schedule. So therefore, that's a problem. And the church is on a snow emergency route, which is another problem. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Kim Trueheart, and I'm a proud resident of Baltimore as well as Howard Park. I live in the 5500 block of Belleville Avenue, which is several blocks away from this property. However, the dilemma that we have in our neighborhood with churches and too few parking doesn't need to be exacerbated by this approval. I live right at Rogers Avenue and Belleville Avenue, 1 block from Liberty Heights, where a large church with a large congregation comes in on Saturday. I have been involved in 2 car accidents because the church congregants will park illegally, right? Illegally on their worship day, which happens to be Saturday. And that's Saturday morning. The last incident occurred this past winter. And trying to creep out of my street onto Rogers Avenue, where these cars are parked so close to the intersection of my street that you can't see around them. Parking is a problem that overflows into my street, a block away from the church. Every Saturday, there are no free parking spots available for the residents on my block because the church congregants use them. I think we need to be very mindful of the quality of life of residents in this city. There have been too many variances to what we thought were appropriate and reasonable laws, all right, in terms of our quality of life. And this is one instance where there should be no variance whatsoever. The people of Baltimore City's quality of life has suffered too much. You know, we got liquor issues, we got church issues. I love the Lord, absolutely. And if you want a place to worship, I will offer you a place in my rec center, right, to come worship, okay? But we do not need to exacerbate the quality of life issues here in Baltimore. And I ask this board to respect that, uphold it, uplift it. All right, those of us who have remained in Baltimore want to be here, but we don't want to be here in chaos.
One thing I will point out, so this residential district is a R4 district, looking under the new code. Fortunately, one of the good things about the new code is it has a bunch of handy-dandy tables in it. Makes it a lot easier to read. And the request here is for a church. So, turning to table 8301 of the code, places of worship are denoted as conditional uses in an R4 district. Conditional uses under the law are presumptively valid uses. What the law is on that is that that the mayor and the city council have determined that within any number of zoning districts, but here in our 4 district, there are a number of uses that may be made of property. Some may be made as of right. Others may be made just with the board's approval. But with conditional uses, what the law is on that is that you need to show that there is something particularly wrong with this particular use in this particular location that is unlike the location of the same use somewhere else, generally within the zone. So it's not an argument about sort of the general inappropriateness of this use in the district in general, but there has to be something particular about this use in this place that makes it ill-suited for that location. The threshold for that is intentionally high because the courts have determined that since the legislature and the executive here, the mayor and the city council, already determined that generally speaking, these uses, including conditional uses such as churches, are acceptable and appropriate uses generally within these locations. So I just wanted to mention that because there's at least there has been a concern stated by the opposition about how this is a residential area and churches shouldn't be in a residential area, they should be in somewhere else, they should be in a rec center or what have you. But what the law is on that is that churches have just as much right to be located in a residential area as a house. Because the legislature and the executive, again, the mayor and the city council, already determined that those are acceptable and appropriate uses there, generally speaking. There have been, that's not to say that that is the sum total of the position of the opposition, but I did want to give some background there so that everyone kind of knows where we are. All right, sir.
So, I mean, just to reiterate, you know, conditional use to approve this church, 50-person church with appropriate level of parking, we'd ask the board to approve that under the transform code. There's no indication that this will be a mixed-use property, as was suggested by one of the other folks. So that is all I have to say. Ms. Mosby, anything else by you?
Just wanted to mention that we do have permits Someone stated that we didn't. We do have permits for the demolition that we have already completed. We do have that. We do pay taxes. We do have to pay taxes because this property is jointly owned at this time by the church and an individual. And I live in the Baltimore City, and so I do understand the challenges of the city. Again, we definitely intend to add to this community, not take away from this community. We are a church that intend to be holistic. We're not just coming to supply spiritual, provide spiritual services, but we are coming to be a part of the community and offer some other services that may be needed in that community. And so, thank you.
Thank you.
What are the days of worship for the church?
So the church plans to worship on Sunday morning, on some occasions Sunday afternoon, to meet once a week for Bible study, and to meet once a week for our children's church and youth Bible study and choir rehearsal.
Okay. And is I believe the church is already in operation, correct, at the Reverend's location? And how many members do you have currently?
Probably 30.
Okay, and so those are regularly attending members?
Pretty much.
Okay. All right.
Many of them are here today supporting
Yeah,
the
we have
application.
some
You guys
here.
would stand up, member of the Transforming Christian Church.
was operating on North Avenue, Pennsylvania Avenue. You're not operating.
Folks, we can't, no dialogue from the gallery.
Yeah, thank you. So there's a members here in support of the application.
Okay.
Brother Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to add that we practice small church environment. We had a recommitment in our service last Sunday. The total people that have transformed our community has been 7. We have a total of 7 who have constructed a place for women who are suffering with the addiction to drugs. And we run an operation in that community of more than $500,000 a year with 7 people. So it's not the numbers of folk who are attending our service that is of interest with us. What is a very powerful interest in our lives is how many people we can affect in the community, which we have done. We built a school. We built over 300 homes through Habitat for Humanity in our community. These were just small amounts of people in service. So we don't do service as what was represented by our friends and neighbors here in Forest Park. So I just want to reiterate that we don't look at the numbers and the amount of people that come in. We look at the quality and those who are really willing to hold one another accountable to do the service that is needed for our community in Baltimore City. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Any further?
No, sir.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Next up, 2017-143, 3400 Boston Street, Caroline Hecker.
Have them.
She wants to see the support.
Okay. Folks, if you wanted to.
It's like being in a movie, we got so used to being in prior seats.
Okay, Ms. Hecker, we have this as an application to construct an 8-story building used as 243 dwelling units with 243 dwelling units with 234 parking spaces and 108 bicycle spaces. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. If all those intending to give testimony can raise their right hands and be sworn.
Raise your right hands, please. Do you swear or affirm the testimony that you're about to give in this hearing will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
All right. Do you have staff reports?
We do. We received multiple emails relative to this project that are in opposition. The principal concerns relative to the project include oversaturation in the market for apartments, and within the email, and I will state parenthetically, that multiple vacancies in an apartment building 2 to 4 blocks away from the proposed site was their anecdote to support that. The height of the proposed structure relative to the rest of the structures within the surrounding block, which are 2 to 3 stories high. The height of the building relative to the 2-story row houses that are located directly behind the proposed 8-story building, which according to this email will also cause a lack of sufficient sunlight to these properties. The devaluation of the surrounding properties, and then the fifth one was with only the 12-foot buffer, the homeowner has concerns regarding the safety of the 2-story row houses. And then another individual stated along the lines that the community would be better served if the construction of additional businesses were located on the lot instead of the high-rise apartment buildings. In addition to this, he was also upset that there was a failure to add a first-floor business associated with the high-rise. And then another concern of the manner in which this builder has gone through the zoning process. Traditionally, with such a high-impact project, a builder will set up a meeting with the Economic Development Committee of the Canton Community Association before proceeding with any zoning changes. The CCA will force the builder to send out the flyers notifying the nearby residents of the potential impact that the project might cause, and according to the neighbor, he never received any information regarding this project. And then the proposed site is also next to senior housing, and the increased traffic and density will cause a disturbance to the residents. And the last three that were listed is the amount of off-street parking is less than 1 space per unit, which will adversely affect the parking within the immediate vicinity, even though it's within the zoning regulations. In this individual's opinion, it did not seem adequate. The reduction in parking that was originally going to be provided was replaced with bicycle parking, which the neighbor sees as a potential benefit, but is unsure how it will actually work to reduce the parking congestion. And lastly, the impact on parking and traffic during the construction. Since construction workers park their vehicles on the neighborhood streets, and since the overall project will take approximately 2 years, this time scope will put a heavy burden on the surrounding residents.
Thank you. Planning Department reviewed this application, has been working actually with the applicant on issues concerning the development of the site itself. Planning Department noted that this property is in the Canton Industrial Area Urban Renewal Area, which urban renewal plan does not restrict the proposed use or the proposed height of this development. The department therefore recommends approval of the application be subject to the condition that the proposed use is constructed in accordance with site and development plans approved by the Planning Department. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, and Ms. Hecker, is your client amenable to the conditions offered by the planning department?
Yes, we're agreeable to the conditions. I just want to make one clarification. Although Mr. French is correct that the Canton Industrial Urban Renewal Plan wouldn't prohibit this use, the property is not actually located within the Urban Renewal Plan. I do have a copy of the plan here, and you can see from the maps that are attached to the as exhibits to the plan, we're actually just outside of the plan area. I'm happy to provide a copy of that to the board.
Where do you have the boundary falling?
I beg your pardon?
Where do you have the boundary of the plan?
Right along Boston Street, and we're on the north side of Boston Street.
Okay.
And it runs down the middle of Boston Street and then comes up along the east side of Brewers Hill along the rail line.
Okay. And Mr. French, does the planning department
I'm happy
have
to.
a contrary interpretation of the boundary of the urban renewal plan?
I would simply say this, we don't have a contrary interpretation. However, if this plan did include this property, then the urban renewal plan document itself would not restrict the use or the height as proposed.
We all agree about that.
Okay. Okay. Ms. Hecker, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me introduce our team just for the record. Caroline Hecker, Rosenberg Martin on behalf of the applicant. I'm joined by my colleague Justin Williams, as well as Bob Rosenfeld and Elitza Hertzmark with Colbert Matz Rosenfeld, the project engineers, and Doug Schmidt down there on the end from Workshop the Development, the developer of the project. So this is an application for an interior side yard and a rear yard variance related to the development of an apartment building at 3400 Boston Street in Canton. Mr. Williams has handed up a folder full of some exhibits that we'll walk through. The property is zoned OR2 as of yesterday under Transform Baltimore. We are proceeding under the new zoning code. It's about 58,000 square feet in size. It's bounded on the west side by South Highland Avenue, the east side by Bayless Street. It doesn't quite touch Boston Street, although it does have a Boston Street address. There's a city parcel in the front of it, which we'll talk more about in a moment. And then in the rear, it abuts some townhouses before Toon Street on the I guess it's the north side of the property. The property is currently owned by Kaufman Electric Company. It's been an old industrial site, one of the last vestiges of an industrial site left in Canton. Many properties in that area have been redeveloped, and this is really one of the few remaining undeveloped properties. One of the first exhibits that you'll see in the file that we've handed out shows an aerial view of the current condition of the property, as well as some street view images from Google showing what's there today. You'll see the property that's the subject of the appeal is outlined in the middle of the first sheet of that exhibit. On the west side, you can see the senior apartment community, which has 57 units, and on the east side is the Broom Factory building. That's a commercial building that's used for offices and the Harbor Enterprise Center. You can see on the front side of this property along Boston Street, there's a green area. It's almost a triangular shaped parcel. That parcel is owned by the city. And while this property does, as I said, have a Boston Street address, we don't technically front on Boston Street. And that is actually what brings us here today. If we had a Boston Street address, Boston Street would be our front and we wouldn't need any variances. But because we technically don't touch Boston Street because of this parcel, our front has to be South Highland Avenue, which makes our rear Bayless Street, and then our interior sides become the north and south side of the property, and the side that we're requesting the variance on is the Boston Street side attached to this city parcel.
Okay, so I'm guessing there is some kind of reason why the city hasn't sold the property to your client, or why your client hasn't been able to buy it from the city.
We are in negotiations with the city to acquire the piece of property. We just haven't done it yet, and it's taking a lot longer than we thought it would, so we're here just in the event that that doesn't end up working out.
Okay.
That property is a former Canton Railroad right-of-way. There's actually in the file, the next thing you'll see is the tax plat that shows the outline of the lot, but then there's a historical context map that shows the old rail line is the red line that runs up along there. And it sort of causes, if you look at the block of properties along Boston Street, they all sort of have this sloped
Yes.
front yard side. So in any event, our client is trying to acquire that piece of property, and if they're able to, this whole proceeding will become moot. But at the moment, they have not yet acquired the property from the city.
And the reason why I brought that up was I know that there is, I guess the property is located in the critical area, and so I didn't know if there was some interplay there, whether that was some kind of required setback that the city was maintaining, but I
Oh,
guess
no, it
there's
has absolutely nothing to do with that. It is located in the critical area, but we're not actually requesting any variances from the critical area requirements. That's all a non-issue really for this.
Okay, good.
The property, if you're not familiar with the site, is located across the street from the shops at Canton Crossing, which has the Target and the Harris Teeter. It's been a very successful development, really drawing more people to Canton. There's a phase 2 of that that's proposed to expand the shopping center. Hopefully that will get underway soon. This site was originally proposed to be zoned TOD4 as part of the comprehensive rezoning, but once the governor decided not to proceed with the red line, the city council revisited that decision and rezoned it to OR2, an office residential district, which is what brings us here today. The property is entitled to have residential uses on it under that zoning.
Want to hold out, maybe see if the red line comes back?
If only, right? I'll leave my commentary about that aside. This project has been in the works for several years now. As Mr. French alluded to, we've been working with the planning department. We did meet with the Canton Community Association probably a year and a half ago, maybe. And there are several articles in the file that I've included, press articles about the proposed development as it's worked through the design review process with the city. It's an 8-story building. It's 243 apartment units. It'll have amenities that'll include a 4th floor pool with a deck and cabanas, a health club, a rec room, bike storage, and dog washing stations. The design of the building includes a 234-space parking garage. It's a 2-story garage at the ground and second floor level. And that, is I'll come back to parking in a second, but it meets the parking requirements of the zoning code. We have included some perspective renderings and some floor plans, as well as the site plan and the massing diagram in the file. You can see it's proposed to sort of have a new industrial feel to it to fit in with the nearby adjacent former industrial properties, but also fit in with the sort of brick look of the neighboring community. From a density perspective, the site has sufficient density to accommodate the proposed 243 units. It would actually be permitted to have 290 units by right under the OR2 zoning. And it's within the height limit that's proposed, that's permitted in the OR2 zoning district. Up to 100 feet in height would be permitted. The proposed building is 85 feet in height. Both the height limit and the density would have been much higher if it had been TOD4 under Transform as it was originally proposed. But in any event, we're not even meeting or maxing out rather the amount of height and density that the project would be entitled to have under the current OR2 zoning. With regard to the parking, as I said, it'll have 234 parking spaces, which meets the zoning code requirements because of the reduction that's permitted based on the amount of bicycle parking that we're providing. Under Transform, you're allowed a reduction in the amount of vehicle parking based on the number of bicycle parking spaces that you are providing. So we're providing 108 bicycle spaces, which gets us a reduction of 9 vehicle parking spaces. So when you subtract 9 from the 243 spaces that would be required at 1 per unit, you end up with 234 parking spaces, and we are providing the requisite number of spaces. With regard to the variances that we're requesting, with regard to the yard requirements, as I said, our front yard is technically on Highland Avenue, and that's because of this city parcel that prevents us from having actual frontage on Boston Street. So we're asking for a variance on the Bayless Street side to permit a 0-foot rear yard setback, since Bayless is now our rear yard. So that the building can extend from edge to edge. And then we're asking for a variable interior side yard on the Boston Street side. And if you look at the site plan of the building, you'll see that the building sort of steps back. It's designed to line up with the adjacent properties, so it's a little further south on one side than the other. And the yard will vary on that side between 0 feet at its closest and 19 feet at its widest. That, again, is because of the irregular condition of the front of the property due to the city parcel that is located there. I would like to note, however, that if the frontage was on Boston Street and we had a Boston Street frontage, the rear of the property would then be the north side adjacent to Toon Street, and we have set the building back the required 10 feet on that side, even though that's technically now our side yard on the north side of the property. It does meet what would be the rear yard requirement if it was the rear yard. And we also have included in the file, actually, an exhibit that shows this sort of unique and weird condition where we have, the last thing that you'll see in the file, the first page is what we have today. It shows, the front is located along the Highland Avenue side, and the rear is located along the Bayless Street side. And as you'll see, we're required to provide a 10-foot rear yard, and we're providing a 0-foot rear yard on Bayless Street. And then on the front side, we're required to either provide a 0-foot front yard, or if we're providing a front yard, it has to be 10 feet. We are providing a front yard that varies from 0 to 19 feet, an interior side yard from 0 to 19 feet on the Boston Street side of the building. And then the second page of that exhibit shows what would occur if the front was actually on Boston Street. Then we would not be required to provide a front yard, which is what we would have a 0-foot setback there. And we would have a corner side, which would be 0 on the Bayless Street side, which again meets the zoning requirements. With regard to the legal standards the board's required to consider, the property is unique because of this condition along Boston Street, both with regard to the irregular shape due to that former rail spur parcel that's along the front, but also the fact that while we have a Boston Street address, we don't actually have any frontage on Boston Street. And that is what is driving the need for this variance and creating the unreasonable hardship that we have here. We wouldn't need the variance at all if we did actually have frontage on Boston Street. And as I said, we are trying to acquire that property from the city. That process is just taking a little while to accomplish. With regard to the various other legal standards the board's required to consider, the conditions on which the application is based are unique to this property. They're not generally available to other, or applicable to other properties in the OR2 district. In fact, there really isn't any other OR2 zoning in this area. There are no other properties that have this condition of this, weird irregular shape and the parcel that's owned by the city, preventing them from having frontage on Boston Street. And these conditions really are what's creating the practical difficulty for the applicant. The purpose of the variance is not based exclusively on a desire to increase the value or income potential of the property. As I said, we're not building a building that's as tall as it could be or with as many units as we could have there. We're trying to be sensitive to the neighborhood and build something that will, fit in with the neighborhood and, isn't necessarily designed to maximize the amount of profit that could be developed here. The variances are designed not to be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the vicinity or to diminish and impair property values in the neighborhood. We think that the granting of the variance is going to permit the redevelopment of this property, which is, as I said, one of the last properties to be redeveloped in Canton. We think it'll create a much more pleasant looking thing there than the Kaufman Electric plant that's been there for many, many, many years. The setback variances are consistent with the intent of the zoning code of encouraging the most appropriate use of land in the city. As we discussed earlier, the property is not located within the urban renewal area. It's not located within a CHAP district. It is consistent with the city's master plan by not only creating additional housing options, but also creating capital investment in the city, adding to the tax base, creating new jobs both in construction and once the building is actually opened. It will not be detrimental to or endanger the public health, security, general welfare, or morals, or otherwise be contrary to the public interest. Again, these variances really are due to the fact of where our address is located and where our front lot line is. They really don't have a significant impact on the size of the building or anything that would really have an impact on the adjacent properties. And it is the minimum variance necessary to afford relief. With that, I may come back to some of these standards in a little bit more detail after we hear from the opposition, but I think we'd like to hear from them, and I'm happy to respond to any questions that they might have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Karen Warner, and I'm the owner of 3403 Toon Street. My concern basically is for the stability of my home, my townhouse, because it's almost 100 years old, and I have pictures just of the back. We're very close to the back of the building, although I was told there would be 12-foot, which is fine. I know there's no stop. 3403.
Okay, so you're the second one.
The second one in, right. Because it's very tight quarters back there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know there's no stopping the project, but what I do ask is that you respect our neighborhood and our properties. Thank you.
Anyone else?
A lot of people have a lot of things to say, but I'll go next.
My name is Dan Povich. I'm a resident at 1302 South Bayless. I don't know what else you guys might need from me. I understand that this group here, whatever that is, that their title is representing that their request is only for these variances and is moot if they get Boston Street. I would propose in response to that we can certainly wait and hold off on everything and let them see if they can get Boston Street. While Bayless is right now going to be your rear yard, it's our home. I'm a very recent homeowner in Baltimore, and I live on Bayless with my wife and my young son, and there's a huge amount of impact of this. It was represented to us out in the hallway that this is just about a setback variance and about an interior courtyard variance. To the extent that's true, and there's no open discussion of anything else, it's very disappointing to me that I wasn't able to address some other issues. But to the extent the appellant and we're requesting bodies here, and to the extent that people have by letters made comments about the height and the impact on the neighborhood and the disconnect between the proposed building and the historical nature of the community, and the impact not only on the surrounding neighborhood, because certainly our neighborhood is not what you see as you drive down Boston Street, but is represented by all of the community north and west of Boston Street. Then I'll just take a brief opportunity to say, first of all, that I add my voice to the prior comments that were submitted to this honorable body by email or by letter, whatever that was read off at the beginning of this statement. And I would add to that this building is already so out of character with the surrounding neighborhood and of such scale and size and scope that any variance really should be opposed at this point in time, and approached with great care at a minimum to allow further study and evaluation of the impact on pedestrian and vehicle traffic, as well as the impact on surrounding homes, businesses, the accessibility of emergency vehicles that serve the area, including ambulance, fire, the urgent care that's right across the street from your soon-to-be backyard, the very heavy prevalent police and hospital activity, as well as the air traffic over our properties. I would add, in addition to that any even apparently minor request to change a variance or a setback will have significant impact, and to the extent no environmental impact study has been done on the effect of the glass surfacing on our surrounding properties, to the effect on migratory bird population, which I know is a concern in our area, and to the other environmental factors that might apply to the whole scale of the building. Those should apply with equal and greater weight to any attempt to move the building side to side, to move it closer to a sidewalk, to extend it beyond an existing building. And I think that importance just can't be overstated given the monstrous size of this thing. And if you look at it, the way that it looms over the surrounding buildings and is not anything like a building that's been built anywhere in our neighborhood, unless you cross the street to Boston Street and see some of the properties there that sort of tower into the sky. If you could grant me just a minute to look through my notes.
Please take your time.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I understand there's been some discussion about zoning changes that happened yesterday, and this suggestion, and it could very well be the truth, that all sorts of things that are planned for this property are great and good and fine by the new zoning standards. And certainly if that's true, to the extent that's true, that's a limitation. But some of my neighbors have mentioned, I'm sure are more familiar than I am, but we live in a historic property and in a national, really recognized historic neighborhood. And so I would add that concern will add weight to any suggestion that variance, no matter how apparently minor, would have on the surrounding area, and that moving something this big or extending it one direction or another, even by even by inches, could have a massive effect on the use and the enjoyment of the property, not only by the people who are so impacted by it, like my neighbors who live feet from this thing, and me who will no longer be able to see 90% of what I can currently see from my property. But by others that use and enjoy the area and that come to Canton, because Canton's really a special place in Baltimore. And my wife, who's not here, would want me to point that out, because I didn't grow up in Baltimore, but it's something that's very near and dear to her heart. And maybe you can tell from how emotional I am that the character of our neighborhood is going to be really greatly impacted by this. And so I would hope that any decision impacting what already might be taking place is looked at with great care and not overlooked. There's a lot of opportunity, and that's all great, but we have the ability to make sure that opportunity conforms to maintaining some of the desired aspects of the existing community. Further, and I'm not familiar with how the law works or how you guys operate on this, but to the extent there's any even apparent disagreement about the what's in a renewal area and what's not, and the boundary of plans, I would suggest that time should be taken to look more carefully at that issue and delay any decision until everybody's views are completely aligned. And to the extent we are offered the opportunity to dialogue with these guys ahead of, these guys not being their technical name, ahead of time, that it was represented to me during that dialogue that the only issue are these variances, the rear yard and the interior courtyard variance. And if there's an opportunity for dialogue about something else, I certainly hope we'll take the opportunity to have it, because I think great things can happen, and I'm disappointed that I wasn't either more prepared for this hearing or more prepared for what happened 5 years before I got here. But I sort of lay myself at the feet of this committee, and I hope that that you guys will take a real hard, serious look at this, and I trust that you'll take into concern into your factoring of considerations the hearts and the commitment of the people that live in this. And if these folks become our neighbors even more closely than they already are from their other commercial properties, that they'll take those considerations to heart as well. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
I am one of the individuals who emailed earlier. My name is Helena Hausler. I live at 3406 Tune Street. My emails are, my email is among one of the ones that was read among the comments. It has been represented to us that at this point it is just regarding the Boston Street variance in the front, as well as the Bayless Street side. Given that I do not live on Bayless Street, I will defer to my neighbors who do, as they are more impacted by the variance on that side of the street than I am. However, I do, again, and to the extent that the zoning board cannot deal with this issue at this point, then I urge the planning department to listen very closely as to what's been said here today, as that there was very little, to be honest, notification to the neighborhood, which is why we are all here today before you all, unfortunately, is when, we just learned about an 8-story building going up in our neighborhood very, very recently, and obviously some people are going to be living literally 12 feet away from it. It's not as though it's across the street for them. It's literally towering above them, 12 feet away. For me, my home is directly across the street. I've already seen the other properties in the area be affected by the size of the buildings over their homes and the lack of sunlight that their homes receive. I know that, we're in the city, we keep trying to add density, so parking is not always necessarily an issue. I know we have, for the most part in the city, 12-foot homes, 16-foot long cars, so it's always going to be an issue in the city. So for me, that is not so much the issue with this building, as I do know that compared to prior plans that I've heard for various developments in the area, it is closer to a unit per parking space plan than some of the prior developments in the surrounding area. That being said, the sheer size and volume of the building is what, for the most part, is concerning residents, or at least for myself. And so I would just reiterate that, and to the extent that, again, this is not necessarily this point for the zoning board to hear, but instead for the planning department to hear. Hopefully we can work a lot of these issues out in the future. Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Jason Starr, Starr. So I own 1300 South Bayless, which was the old police station about 100 years ago. It was actually Baltimore County, if you can believe it, from what people tell me. I have the Baltimore Sun photo up in my house from 100 years ago, and it's amazing how things look back then. But I'll just this is kind of the front of the house. It's pretty, it's a great property. One thing that I was looking on Google Maps, because I know they've used Google Maps as well, and one of the things that kind of came to my attention, this is right across the street, Natty Bow, and it says Brewers Hill, the land of pleasant living. So, you know, I don't know if you guys are familiar with that area, but the Hanover, the Gunther, all of those properties are 4 to 5 stories. And nothing is built within 12 feet of another property. You're across the street from something, and I know we're not debating that, but this is where the property will go to, like that brown building, and then these are the houses on Toon Street. If you can imagine, like where that guy is on the poster, looking up 85 feet, you would not even have, not just a backyard, but no sunshine. I mean, it's just, to me, it's unfathomable, and I understand the OR2 zoning changed things, but it just does not, it's almost like the first Mariner building, which is, when that was first put up, people were like, that is the ugliest phallic symbol I've ever seen, and it does not fit the neighborhood. That is on the other side of Boston, right? That is not on the side where people live. This is on the side where it's in the middle of a street where there's houses on this side, houses on this side, houses across, and it's literally going to be a monstrosity just in my visualization of it. So, you know, I just think that, I know we're not debating the zoning, but I just wanted my opinion heard that that size is absolutely unreasonable, that close to people that have paid $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 for a house recently even, and there's no way you're going to be able to get that on the open market. There's 13 houses on Toon and Bayless, and if they were interested in really creating an entire block and making it like the Domain, where it's a block long and a block wide, they could offer maybe to buy those 13 houses out at current market value. I think would be a nice, and then they could resubmit plans and do the whole block. I can imagine it $2,000 a 1 bedroom. That would make quite a difference in their bottom line in 5 to 10 years. But I don't know, it's not the land of pleasant living. It's becoming oversaturated with apartment buildings where every 20 feet you take, it's just a new apartment complex that houses hundreds and hundreds of people. Parking used to be easy because it was more industrial. Now it's hard during the day even to find a spot, and it's getting like Federal Hill or Fells Point. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rebecca Hilmer. I'm 3404 Toon Street. And my husband and I just moved there, not quite, I guess it was November. And one of the things we loved about Baltimore is we moved here from Cleveland, Ohio. So we definitely see the benefit of change and revival in a city. And so we are not against change or replacing an ugly site, definitely. But one thing we loved about Baltimore was how Baltimore kept the historicness while they're changing. I mean, some of the great buildings, is Camden Yards, or even the Broom Factory, which is really close to us, or Gunther, which did a wonderful job. And like other people have said, the apartments that have been built in the area have been away from the residential areas mostly. The 2 that have been built in the residential townhomes are the Domain and 1212 East, I think it's called. Those are 4 stories. Those are when you drive along, you really don't see a variance, of the historic townhomes and the apartments. So we're talking about an 8-story building. And I know, it's been argued that it's still, 100 feet were permissible and it's only 85 permit. And, to quote St. Paul, just because it's permissible does not mean it's beneficial or good. And so I would just really appeal to y'all to kind of just, I don't know if anything can be done, but just to reevaluate, what we want this revitalization of a historic area to be. So I thank you for hearing me.
My name is Diane Clark. My husband and I own a property at 3410 Toon Street. This is my first opportunity to weigh in on this project. They've been working on it for 4 years, but I think that they misrepresented what they were building in the beginning. And I know when I heard my neighbors say, well, they said that it would be an 8-story building, but it would only look like 5. It would only be the size of Domain. I thought, well, Domain, okay, you know, another apartment building, but 8 stories is certainly a misrepresentation. And I also want to say that I think it's sad that Barbara Mikulski saved Canton from being paved over, and now this gigantic building is going to ruin the character of our neighborhood. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Ms. Hacker.
Just very briefly, I just want to remind the board that we're only here on the setback variances on the Bayless Street side and the Boston Street side, which are driven by the irregular configuration of the property with the city parcel in the front and the curved frontage along Boston Street. We haven't heard anything from the opposition related to those 2 variances. I understand there's some frustration about the size of the building and a perceived lack of communication over time. We did, as I said, meet with the Canton Community Association's Economic Development Committee. We are on their agenda to come back to do an update with them in a couple of weeks, and I would encourage the neighbors certainly to participate in that meeting. But you know, sometimes these community associations aren't great at getting out the word to the neighbors that may be closest to the property. And you know, while we did meet with the community association, you know, perhaps these folks didn't know about it or weren't living in the neighborhood at the time. I understand there's some newer residents of the neighborhood. But in any event, the comments that we've heard really don't relate to the variances that we're seeking. And you know, we think that there is certainly substantial evidence here to support the granting of the variances. So with that, we conclude.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all. I think we're off the record, right?
Call that one more no-show.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe they'll respect our neighbors.
Okay. Calling one more time. 2017-201, 5 South Curley Street, Frank Federico.
Excuse me?
Red line is a viable thing. That process was underway, big way. So there was a lot of betting on, there'd be a stop on Boston Street around where this property is, or it would make sense to have a higher elevation building, quite frankly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Second,
I'm good.
very nice.
What are we going to talk about?
It may still. It may
One
still.
Oak,
I mean, that was
Boston Street, and
Baltimore
Western
County,
Avenue.
Baltimore County until 1918. Actually, January,
I thought
handed to its present history.
might need some discussion.
So,
Look, Boston Street and Western?
Yeah, 170.
stop demolition.
Sign.
Don't stop
Okay. Yes.
construction. Don't really do anything.
Okay. Start us off.
Benefit if
I
you
thought for 170 that
So,
we're deferring
we're in an area where
on
this
Yeah.
unfortunate
Did I
collision
misunderstand?
of
No, I think that that's,
support.
I think that that's correct. That's how we left it. With
Mode,
them.
it isn't there. at the moment. They're building it as if.
Yeah, I wasn't sure whether we would want to make a decision, contingent upon getting more information or just deferring a decision
Okay.
until we got more information.
Yeah, I'll say we'll defer on that one. I mean,
Renewal
I'll
plan, yeah, we had
wait
our back
to
and
see
forth
what
about
the
that.
drawings
Renewal plan
reflect. I mean, I kind of have a suspicion what they'll reflect, but
ever being possible.
I'll wait
Right.
So it
to
has
see
no
that.
concerns
41.
Gwyn Oak,
to our chagrin.
okay.
Now, maybe it isn't in the urban renewal area. We amended it out. But
So, it's interesting
and
because
the fact that
in a weird sort of way, Glen Oak and Austin Street have similarities in that
a legitimate address.
concern over the project itself.
Yes.
For different reasons, but,
Yes.
and the code pretty much is in favor of the applicant in both situations. But for Glen Oak, for me,
Well, they can do
I,
the city without actually buying.
don't know.
But that isn't gonna give them enough.
I guess I hear the residents a little bit more.
So. The irony also, I know. Railroad.
Before I expire right on the spot.
Bed of the first railroad that came in from the northeast.
So I don't know, it's something about,
Which is why Boston Street is Fleet Street is
you know,
because that was the old
even
rail
though the
bed.
code allows it converting a residential
Why they
building
wanted
to a
to
commercial or to a church for commercial purposes right in the middle of a neighborhood. Parking. But again, the code supports it.
Yeah.
I mean, I understand it. I'm just.
Yeah, it's one of those ones where it's like,
There's churches in residential areas all over the place.
I know.
I was
although
fine
this
with
one
it.
is a conversion.
Right.
But still,
Right.
your point is the same.
Right, I mean, so if they raised the building and built a larger structure, then they'd be, then they don't want the big structure. You know, I was fine with it, I say maybe
But
to
until that happens,
lessen the impact
you know,
to
we have to
the
go along with it.
surrounding community, that we make sure that it's limited to 50 people. I mean, the fire marshal came in and gave it a
Yeah,
capacity
and
for
their
a
point,
row house, so.
their point was, you know,
Right,
an appropriate
right.
one, which was that, you know, we're not
Right, we're
conducting
not gonna
services
have
on the
church
second floor.
upstairs, right.
So,
Right,
so
I
we're
would
including
say
that in the
limit it to
space.
50 people.
City council would
They've got
still take
parking
4 months.
to accommodate.
Yeah, they've got parking to accommodate all of that, and frankly, I think that,
They've already done all
It's
that.
too late.
And
No.
if they do have 50 members, what's the likelihood of all of them coming?
There are limits, basically.
yes. And, you know, if they're limited to 50,
What we try to,
if they have parking that's available on site,
that's gonna be an interesting.
I think it's pretty unlikely that people will still park on the street.
Maybe 2
I
or
mean,
3
why would they
cars
do
that
that?
spill over,
On
but
what is built.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll be that much of
No.
a change from what they're used to.
And I think that, you know, and they were talking about their, is the community experience with some of the other churches that are in the area. It sounds like this one is a little bit better than those others because it is,
Much larger
well,
congregation.
yes, because they're much larger and this one is smaller and it comes with parking. And it sounds like the others may not. Now that may also be driven just simply by their size, I don't know.
They accepted the condition.
The fact that they're on what seems to be, at least outside, seems to be a less traveled street. I mean, they've got the front that's on a main thoroughfare, but their
We operate
side
on the
seems like
edge, I
it's
would
a
say.
fairly quiet street. So those are all things that I think kind of make it a little bit better suited probably than some of the other ones. And, you know, at the end of the day, I hear the community's concern about, you know, the location of the church there. Fortunately, there, you know, the work that's being done is all interior, it's not exterior, it's not like, as you're pointing out, sort of the difference with the situation in Canton where, you know, you're dealing with something that's being deposited in the middle of the area. This is, you know, staying within the dimensions of the property, or the dimensions of the structure that's there. I was thinking about, you know, restricting as far as days of use, but it sounds like they're kind of the days they have the services, plus the, you know, the Bible study and the choir, and, you know, so I don't know that that really works out for them. But the biggest thing I think is just the parking that people are concerned about, and they've got that. And we limit it to 50, which is all they're asking for. I think that that should,
Unusual situation, and it was not deliberate. It was
keep everything contained enough where the effects the community is fearing will be pretty much ameliorated.
But for today's hearing, see
I'd
ordinarily,
like to offer,
would have had notice of this.
Sure.
Four
under
or
the
five, maybe even 6
use
weeks ago.
standards for places of worship, it
So
now says
unfortunately, the first notice you all would have had would have been the sign posted on the property.
it must be designed so the location of entrances and exits, exterior lighting, and so forth.
21
Parking and
days, and
loading
you've lost
must
the chance
will
to
minimize
been in full discussion.
traffic congestion, pedestrian hazard. So the way they show their parking, they don't have
There are modifications.
an access
Now,
plan.
since
And I thought it'd be a good idea, instead of just having everybody
if you're willing to approach
in to
developers or
13 spaces directly off the street, that we should require a site plan review
maybe, you know, you can talk
for the
about some
parking,
modifications.
so they make sure that it works with the least impact
I
on
mean, they pretty much told us in our
Most
meeting
of what
that we
you
have
want.
2 years to out, is basically what they told us today.
But they
Made that parking plan look like a
and
Saturday game day parking.
Well,
We're
yes.
paying
So, and I think they've got the space to have it designed so that it works better.
overcommitted to apartments involved.
My sense was that they probably set it up that way for 2 reasons. A, the absence of a curb.
Right.
So like a lot of the times when you have that, it's that, you know, you've got the ability to control access points. Here, if there's not a sidewalk, it's constructed by the city and there's not a curb, then,
And if that's what works, that's fine, you know, as long as they go through it.
Won't finance it.
They would have to do it anyway for the building permit, anyway, but.
okay,
Go down the road
it's
to
easier.
see, not a problem.
All right, anything else?
So, I'm sorry, what was that, what was David's thought about subject
Having a
subject
site
to a
plan
site plan
review
review?
for the
For the
parking.
parking
For the
plan.
builders, we used to see, well, you know, a dozen years ago.
If
before,
there's more than 5
Here.
spaces,
as a result of this.
they're required to go through
It'll change it from inside for
that type of,
I mean, one way.
for that area.
anyway.
Okay.
Building.
But I think it would
Most of the developers,
at least
last 10 years,
help
garage townhomes.
spur 'em in the right direction if we made that
Because
a
that's been
condition.
a fairly good market.
Okay.
They've done quite well on it.
Uh,
Well, we, too, so now we're gonna have to go back
Oh, I think that's right.
unless anybody else had any others we want to talk about.
and close the deal. Everything's still in play.
I didn't have any.
The better
Didn't either.
alternative
Okay.
Other
comes
questions?
along, maybe they'll
All right,
run the
so then, yeah, that gets us to Boston Street.
This guy doesn't.
Mike, thoughts?
Touch with them.
So I try to the extent you can, see if you can influence.
You could say no.
Yeah, I just,
I understand your shadow problem seriously, because this is on the south side of all those houses, and yeah, the sun's on the south side.
want to call it, put it in the category of you can't stop
Backyards on
progress.
10th Street aren't gonna see much
There's
daylight.
nothing, I don't see any,
Direct sunlight.
any reason why we
Yeah.
shouldn't, we can't approve it.
And what else?
Yeah, you said that you were going
What,
back and
what
forth.
used to be
Good,
a
what's yours?
very easily alley to
hardship.
melt the snow in the winter. Unfortunately.
I don't know that just
Yeah.
because there's that parcel of land that alone
It's, yeah.
really
One of the
equals
sunlight.
a hardship. It just
Thank you
means
so
they
much.
have to reorient the building.
I'm so sorry, what
I
was your
don't,
name?
I mean, I don't have an issue with the project. I just don't know if
Yeah.
that qualifies.
You know, it's funny that you mentioned that. The thing that I was thinking about as I was listening to the case was that a proposal we had in Federal Hill with the Southern High School building, where it was a similar
Right.
kind of
Right.
concern,
Right.
and that was
That was a big
the
issue for
issue
you.
that Frank and I
Yeah,
had brought up
right.
with that case,
Yeah.
was that there wasn't really a lot of discussion about, okay, so, you know, the variance there was also kind of minor, as far as the alignment, of the property. I think it was like 10 feet or whatever they were seeking for the, but it was like, all right, but, you know, why do you need the 10 feet? Yeah, other than, well, I want it.
property.
Um,
So it would make sense not to have it on top of the
Sure.
neighboring properties. And if that means going a little higher to achieve the same density,
mhm.
at least it gives the neighbors a little relief.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, I'm just not sure. And visually, will that make a difference?
Marty?
Impact-wise, will that make a difference?
Well, I don't think that it
know.
will, but that's,
Yeah.
you know, at the same time, I'm not sure that that's sort of where it is at the end of the day. It's, you know, it sort of rises and falls on its own.
Because it's limited to, this hearing is really limited to those two variants, I didn't have a problem.
Mhm.
We're not talking about height or
Yeah.
parking or any of the other
Mhm.
concerns that the opposition raised. In fact, there was, I don't think, any opposition to the two variances.
No.
So, I mean, primarily for that reason, I don't have a problem with the applicant's position.
Mhm. Now, I think, to your
All the
point,
Toon Street residents weren't so happy about that, coming so close to there.
they weren't, although that's not the location of the variance that's an
Right.
issue here.
The variance is-
It's on the side.
Bayless side, right?
Here.
Right, on the Baylor Street.
And
they
then
weren't happy about it.
here.
Right. Yeah, that part shouldn't be an issue for anybody.
Yeah, and, you know, there, you're dealing with this irregular lot line that comes across
Right.
there. And so, you know, I got that.
I just am not sure about the other stuff.
Okay. Ready to vote?
Yep.
Okay.
I think so.
Still have no idea what to do about that.
Nothing focuses the mind like pressure.
All four of us?
No. 2016-45, 1213 Edmondson Avenue was postponed. 2017-41, 5523 Gwynn Oak Avenue. I'm a yes with site plan review. And I don't,
50 people.
yeah, well, the application is for 50, so, but yeah, limited to 50.
But subject to approval for parking by site plan review.
Yeah, I said with condition on site plan review. That would be for the parking. Yeah.
Right. I'm a yes with those conditions.
I agree with those conditions.
Mr. Barton, waiting on me? Yeah.
Okay. 2017-112, 1505 through 1507 Rowland Heights Avenue was consent with planning department conditions. 2017-113, 4301 through 4305. La Plata Avenue was by consent with planning department conditions. Also with both of those, there's a community, I guess an agreement with the community association. That's in the record as well. 2017-120, 3419 through 3433 Old Frederick Road was withdrawn. 2017-142, 1800 North Smallwood Street was by consent. That was pursuant to the new zoning code as were 112 and 113 and 41. 2017-143, 3400 Boston Street, also pursuant to the new zoning code. I'm a yes.
Agreed.
Don't all speak at once.
I'll help you. I'm a yes.
I don't have an objection to the plan, I just don't think they met the requirements. I'm a no.
Okay. 2017-155, 2100 East Fayette Street, was by consent, planning department conditions. 2017-170, 1321 Western Avenue. We are deferring on pending receipt of drawings from the applicant. 2017-174, 2609 Edmondson Avenue. I'm a yes.
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 2017-177, 3238 Esther Place, was not posted. 2017-183, 3405 O'Donnell Street, was by consent. 2017-184, 107 East Fort Avenue, was by consent. 2017-185, 3612 through 3614 South Hanover Street. I'm a yes with planning department conditions.
Agreed.
And that's also as amended to just live entertainment, no dancing.
Right. Are we fine with the hours of operation?
That was one thing I'm just seeing there. Yeah.
Midnight?
Yeah, that's a good compromise.
What's the, I didn't appreciate the concern over the hours. So they're saying they'll stop selling food at 11, but they're gonna keep it open beyond that.
Yeah, basically.
Band's gonna be playing.
They'd still be selling food.
Yeah,
'Cause it's a
she
buffet, so.
basically said that, well, you know, our hours now are what they are, but we've got the live entertainment, so maybe we would go later. It was sort of, she didn't really express it very well. I think, I have ordered from there in the past. They do have very good Jamaican food. I haven't been there. We picked it up and ate it at the pool, but so because of sort of the history that was involved, I'm a little bit leery as to the 2 o'clock live entertainment. So yeah, I'm good with midnight.
The history involving this owner or prior owner?
Prior owner.
Prior owner, yeah.
I think it's the same property owner, but a different
Yes.
tenant.
Okay.
I see. So, but as a restaurant, they're required to, you know, primarily sell food,
Yes,
right?
yes, and there's no alcohol.
Right.
Because they don't have a liquor license.
Right.
She was basically saying on the nights that they have a band, she wants to keep the restaurant open later.
Yes.
I think that's what she
Right.
said.
So
Yes.
they're still serving food, it's just that it's in that bar area.
Right.
And they want to stay open past 11 o'clock,
Yeah.
that's the way I understood it. Which sounds fishy, but.
Well, that's why I said, you know, you can start her off at 12 and then, you know, see how it goes. And if after a year she
They could
wants
always,
to push it to, wants to push it to 2, then we can amend it and.
Or 12:30?
I just say midnight.
Okay.
Nobody's gonna, don't have a liquor license and nobody's gonna enforce it. Unless it becomes a real nuisance.
That's the idea.
I'm gonna go dance and see if they enforce the no dancing.
After they see you, I'm sure they will.
Yeah. It's like, bad idea.
Right.
All right.
Okay, I didn't have a problem on the hours, but,
I'm a yes with the midnight, I guess, restriction added.
so what, the business has to close at midnight? The entire operation? Is that
Live entertainment would end at 12, because that's what she's here for.
I guess they could stay at the restaurant.
Yeah, the restaurant could stay open.
Stay open all night if they wanted.
That's right.
Yeah, but it's not likely to happen if the band shuts down.
Yeah.
That's-
We should make sure it's worded like that, though.
Hmm?
We should word
Yes,
it like that.
yeah.
Because right now, they stop serving food at 11.
Yes.
Kitchen closes at 11.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But if a band is playing, folks are inclined to, would be more likely to be inclined to hang around, listen to the band.
More likely inclined to dance.
I don't know. I mean, I thought that the issues with the property were for this particular business. Now that I know that it was a prior business, I guess I'm okay without the midnight restriction. I still think it's a little fishy that they're open until 2. When they stop serving food at 11, what are they doing?
Well, okay, so other businesses, now the distinction is a liquor license. Pazzo, for example.
Yes.
When it was Pazzo, used to stop serving food at a certain hour, a DJ would start playing, they would actually move tables out of the way,
yes.
and it would become a club.
Oh, that's right.
So what's the difference, other than the fact that these folk don't have a liquor license?
That's really the only difference.
Her testimony was they weren't gonna stop serving food.
That's even better for her. She gets to generate more revenue by selling food until 2 a.m. if people are still hungry. I don't, want to buy food.
Well, remember, it's, if the live entertainment ends at midnight, because she's got it on her application to be starting at 8.
Right.
So, that's 4 hours music. If she wants to keep the restaurant open afterwards, it's not like she's got to shut the business down.
Well, yeah, no, I guess I'm questioning why would we make the live entertainment shut down at midnight? I'm asking that is the question.
Right.
To try it out and see how it goes.
And her request was for live entertainment till 2, right? And we're saying, well, we're not so sure. How about midnight?
Yeah.
Essentially.
All right, no, I withdraw my suggestion.
So I guess if we don't agree on the time, does her application just fail?
It shouldn't.
No. Well, really.
It shouldn't.
Darn Frank.
No, because there would be affirmative votes for the application and but insufficient votes as to the conditions to be placed. So the appeal as presented would pass.
Minus any outcry from the community, I don't see any reason why we should put any restrictions on it.
Okay.
Okay.
I mean, if it was, I get the prior issues, but
Right.
if it were that big of a deal, I think people would have shown up to
Okay.
The prior problem was with the banquet hall, the rear
Yes.
room. They packed it,
Yes.
and but they didn't manage it very well. This is a much smaller operation.
Yeah, the banquet hall isn't even a part of this
Right.
No, it's not.
Right.
application.
So hopefully it won't
Just
be a
remember, that's how
problem.
things creep.
Right. I'm sure at some point they're gonna wanna try to revisit that, but.
Or they will start clearing out the tables and letting people go out to their cars and whatnot, get whatever, so, we'll see. You two still haven't voted. I said you two still haven't voted.
Well, I'm a yes, but without the
I'm a
midnight
yes without restrictions.
I'm a yes without restrictions.
Okay.
And I'll take a flask for my birthday.
Just make sure you give them a warning. I've forgotten, I actually wasn't the one who picked it up, my wife was.
Okay.
Yeah, it's right there at the corner of like Tapsco and whatever that is, Hanover.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on the other corner from the Royal Farm.
Yes, it's opposite, it's opposite the bank, the Bank of America.
Yep.
2017-186, 3431 Benton Avenue was by consent, the planning department conditions. 2017-187, 2044 Bank Street was by consent. 2017-188, 1438 Reynolds Street was by consent. 2017-191, 2505 Fleet Street. I'm a yes.
Agreed.
2000.
Yes.
Yes.
2017-193, 1008 South Kenwood Avenue was postponed. 2017-194, 801 through 803 South Broadway. I'm a yes with planning department conditions.
Yes.
I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay. 2017-195, 6040 through 6042 Hartford Road was by consent. 2017-186, 1817 Maryland Avenue was by consent with planning department conditions. 2017-201, 5 South Curley Street was a no-show. 2017-202, 603 South East Avenue was by consent. 2017-206, 1729 St. Paul Street was by consent. All right. So you all ready to stare down a 17-year-old?
I am. Just like, Merriweather fight way in. Nose to nose.
I always thought the line from Clueless was the best.
What's that?
Got a gun and a shovel, and no one will miss you.
Approve, it's not my decision, it's their decision. Approve subject to site plan review for the. That means that they will have to bring a parking lot plan in the planning department and have it approved. And planning department approval will be coordinated with the city department of transportation because they will have to show where the entrance and the exit for the planning